Hello everyone, if you're new to my channel, consider liking and subscribing. It will make me feel wonderful if you do that. Thanks. By the way, I also have another Naruto and Luffy fanfiction channel. If you are interested, link is in the description. Koby's Choice by Sword of the Gods, Axe Hand. Morgan single-handedly shattered Koby's faith in the Marines, breaking his dreams. If a pirate is the first one to ever show you kindness in a world run by a corrupt justice, who do you follow? Well, the future king of the pirates, of course. I don't own anything. Adios.
Coby broke free of the ground, transforming into his armor mode as Hashokusha and Imono intercepted Helmeppo's attempted attack on the woman. "You have no shame, do you?" the pirate growled. "Sir Coby," Kinemon gasped. "Aizu is retrieving his men now. We need only to protect the king and princess until they arrive, but we are being pursued." "This day just gets better and better," the Rosset growled. "Captain Leo, I'm so glad to see you." The bee-woman's cheer was cut off by a scream, one echoed by a number of her own forces as each in the air, dwarf, beetle, and bee alike, was cut in twain. The whip-like blade was only stopped by Kairo's own, shoving him back nearly a foot in the direction of his daughter, his father-in-law, the zone pirate, and the samurai. "I was hoping to get them all in one swoop," Diamante growled, carelessly stepping on several of the bisected insects and dwarves. Leo's grip on his needle tightened to the point his weapon shook and his knuckles widened as the Doflamingo officer crushed poor Bian's remains underfoot. "Well, I suppose it wouldn't be fun that way. Hey, Marine. In the name of my captain, the warlord Don Quixote Doflamingo, help me kill these pirates and traitors." Helmeppo raised one of his kukri to his lips, licking the candy blade, with pleasure. Coby took his opponent's moment of dramatization to push against him, driving Helmeppo back several steps. The blonde's eyes narrowed as spikes of candy rose from the edible but nasty floor, stopping his backward momentum. These were just some of a wave of spikes, forcing Coby to jump backward lest they puncture his feet. He swiped with Imono, a line carving itself into the floor to divide the candy before him from the candy behind, severing Helmeppo's control and stopping the wave of spikes. He may be powerful, but he is now alone. Coby heard Kinemon yell, the call followed by a clashing of steel. "Let us overpower him now." "Hey, dwarf," Coby called. "Leo, right? I'm sorry about all this." "It is not your fault, lizard," Leo replied, his words a little choked. Coby guessed the hornet woman must have been a good friend of his. "We knew we could die fighting Doflamingo. Listen, I need you to guard our perimeter." Coby did not take his eyes off Helmeppo. "I can feel more marines and grunts approaching us. If they overwhelm us, it doesn't matter if we can win here. Can you keep them at bay?" "I will," the dwarf swore. "I only ask that you assist our rescue of our Princess Mancherry." "Mancherry? She's candy cut." Coby ducked under the enlarged and extended kukri that tried to take his head off. He responded by bisecting the Candyman, but his attack only passed through the other teen's torso with a purple ripple. Thinking quickly, Coby transformed into his drill mode and spun, using his wide, flat tail. It, unlike the swords, caused the logia to splatter. Shave. Unseen disaster. Sucker punch. Hybrid mode. Coby's swords clashed with the candy-encased fist of the Vice Admiral. The logia material hard enough that sparks would have come from it had it been another material or had Coby's swords been of lesser quality or less maintained. Helmeppo's other fist came around, similarly clad. Coby blocked it too, forcing the blonde back. Helmeppo settled into a boxer's stance. "I've learned a lot over the past 2 years, Trihorn," he said. "Swordplay, martial arts, tactics, and more. Where you have focused, I have absorbed everything. It won't be long before I find the chink in your armor." "That's assuming you last that long," Coby replied, his grip on his swords tightening. "I don't want to kill you, Helmeppo." "What a shame, because I want to kill you." He shot forward with Sugar Rush, Coby transforming into his slasher mode while spinning his swords into reverse grips. Helmeppo's punch landed with a ringing clang, the pirate hopping to let the force carry him backward. He didn't take more than a moment before using that distance to his advantage. Pterodactyl Swarm. The ranged attack had barely left him before the swordsman was running, curving to the left. Still, Helmeppo didn't care for the Rosset's attempts, letting the flying slashes cut through his logia constitution ineffectually. He raised his hands, the sucker-like gloves turning viscous before reforming into a giant battle axe. He launched toward the zone. "Candy Cleaver," Coby grunted, raising his swords to catch the axe with a cross block that put the candy blade too close to his face for comfort. He narrowed his eyes and started pulling his hands apart. Helmeppo's eyes, in response, widened. He couldn't believe what he saw. Coby's swords were slowly, ever so slowly, shearing through his crafted weapon. He abandoned the axe and jumped back, scowling as Coby finished cutting the purple blade in two. "You're right," Coby admitted. "I did focus on my devil fruit and my swordplay over most everything else, but it seems you forgot why people do that." He grinned. You're not the only one who spent the last 2 years training. When it comes to blades, I'm just better than you, and this fight may be just what I need to figure out armament the hard way. Not before I present your head to Sakazuki-sensei myself." As Coby clashed with Helmeppo, the former trying to remember everything Rayleigh had ever told him about armament hockey, Kinemon and Kanjuro found themselves getting thrown by the executive officer they were facing, the reedy man with a deep scowl. "You peasants annoy me," he said. "You keep flinging yourselves at me like flies but refuse to die like cockroaches." "You will not," Kinemon panted, using the wall he'd just stuck to raise himself, "harm these royals, as long as we stand." "And they don't stand alone." Diamante spun, letting Kairo's sword bounce off his steel cape. His own blade flashed out as he completed his spin, but Kairo's was not a legend within the Colosseum for no reason, previously forgotten or otherwise. His own sword came up to block, his 1 foot proving enough to absorb all of the Doflamingo pirate's force. "Now this is more like it," Diamante grinned, pushing his sword against the former gladiators. "I wish I'd gotten a crack at you before Daffy and Sugar that day." "If you had, I would have slain you then," Kairo swore, his eyes hard. "Perhaps, we'll never know. Behold, my magical beasts." Diamante glanced in the direction of the voice, finding the red-haired samurai knelt, his hands pressed together as if in prayer. As he watched, a number of distorted creatures, possibly humans and what the executive guessed were supposed to be a boar, deer, large butterfly, and a dragon of some sort, rose from the cobblestone. Each was, however, horribly deformed and seemed in pain just by existing. At Kanjuro's gesture, the creatures charged forward. Diamante sighed, jerking his sword up with a grunt to kick Kairos in the stomach. The one-legged man coughed as he was pushed back, but the red-dressed pirate didn't have time to care. He slashed with his weapon, turning the first 3 humanoids into splatters of ink. The boar and deer tried to bear down on him from either side, but their crude tusks and cockeyed antlers did nothing to his steel cape, Diamante dispatching them quickly as the butterfly and dragon approached. The latter, with wings that were too misshapen to fly as it was supposed to and, thus, was forced to crawl on its stomach. An upward cut sheared a wing from the insect, and a good pair of stomps was all that was needed to destroy the dragon, even if it got ink all over his shoes. "My magical beasts!" Kanjuro gasped. Diamante made to charge him only to be forced to block, grandfather and granddaughter crossing their swords through the air where his neck would have gone. He outclassed each individually, but they were much stronger together, even if Diamante managed to push them back several steps. "This is going to be a fun day," he said, a sick sneer tugging at his lip. "This time I can kill 3 generations of the royal family at once." "What?" Rebecca gasped, her grip faltering. Age of the opening he'd wanted, a twist of his blade causing the team to drop hers. The pirate lunged only for the former king to take the full brunt of the attack, his arms shaking. That was all the weakness Diamante needed. Before anyone, not Kairos, not the samurai, and certainly not the girl reliving the trauma of Thunder Soldier carrying her mother's lifeless corpse that rainy day. The pirate's thin blade shot forward, piercing the old man's neck. "Ricky!" Rebecca screamed. "King Riku!" Kairos and the samurai gasped. All motion in the crossroads froze as Diamante and the former king locked eyes. "Down!" the pirate ordered, pressure on his sword forcing the man to his knees. "Look at this, you're dying where you belong. Where you've always belonged. On your knees at our feet." Former King Riku could feel the blood filling his lungs, but his steel gaze never wavered. He spat a wad of bloody saliva, but it didn't have the force to reach Diamante's ink-stained shoes. "Fine," the reedy man said. "Die in pain and misery, a slower death than your daughters." He jerked his sword to the side, ripping out half of the king's neck in a spray of blood. The older man collapsed, the light of life leaving the eyes of Riku Doldo III. "You bastard," Coby roared, covering the sound of Helmeppo's grunt as he literally dug his heels into the candy below to combat the pink-haired pirate's strength. "Helmeppo, you ugly, ass-chinned, purple-gutted, moronic daddy's boy piece of diabetic fuckshit. Get the fuck out of my way. How dare, and you'll pay for what you've done." "I think not," Diamante replied, looking down on the shell-shocked Rebecca, spots of blood dotting her pale face. Her hands were visibly shaking, her eyes on the crimson pool growing under her grandfather's body. Diamante stepped on it. "I'm just taking out the trash. Out with the old, as it were. Dressrosa's got a new royal family." Rebecca shook, barely registering the unrestrained scream of rage or the blur of Kairo's red cape as the man leapt at his father-in-law's killer. Diamante ducked and parried, his maniacal grin never leaving his face even as he was forced to back away from the fresh corpse. "Death is too good for you," Kairos swore, his sword bouncing off the pirate's steel cape only to return to block a strike in the same second. "You deserve far worse, but I refuse to leave you alive, murderer." "Would that you could," Diamante replied. He stomped, the ground rippling outward. Had he 2 legs, Kairos would have stumbled, but he did not. Rather, Kairos very nearly flailed, only his battle-honed instincts saving him from another stab that only sent him backward. "I'll kill you," Rebecca hissed, grabbing her sword and charging forward, tears streaming down her cheeks. She slashed wildly, without thought or reason, aiming for any piece of exposed skin she could see. Coby, even with only his fleeting glimpses as he balanced defense from the Vice Admiral's attacks before him and his attempts to maneuver around said Marine, could tell her style was learned to be almost entirely defensive. Even if that wasn't the case, she was in no state of mind for the kind of complicated swordplay necessary to defeat an opponent like Diamante. Kinemon, Kanjuro, and Kairos all surged forward, but they were all too far away. A single twist of the wrist was all Diamante needed, the princess screaming. She dropped to her knees, her left hand grasping at the stump that was now the end of her right arm just below the elbow. Blood flowed between her fingers, tears of rage and pain making her vision blurry, only compounded now from blood loss. Diamante kicked her in the face, sending Rebecca sprawling with a new bloody nose. He reached into his coat, pulling out a pistol he aimed at the squirming girl. The samurai and gladiator froze, scared that one wrong move would make the pirate pull the trigger early. "Now this is a feeling to die for," the man said. "Don't get me wrong, killing your mother was satisfying as hell, but it wasn't fun. Just a twitch of a finger and she fell over like a puppet." Bang! He mimed firing the gun, laughing. "No, this is fun. The rage, the terror, the pain, the blood. This is why I wanted to head the Colosseum. To run the tournaments where prisoners like you fight and die for our amusement. My amusement. This is the heart of human emotion, this." "How are you?" In Tarabangu, Diamante was not prepared for the human-shaped projectile that crashed into him, he and Helmeppo going down in a tangle of sticky limbs and wavy steel. The pirate's gun fired into the air, but it was Koby's rumbling snarl that took precedence. He stomped forward, armament hockey all but wafting from his pitch-black arms. He did not, however, go after the pair, his newly awakened armament dissipating with his zone transformation as he ran to Rebecca's side. He didn't really know anything about the girl. Her name was Rebecca, her grandfather had just died and was apparently the former king, which made her a princess, and Diamante had killed her mother, but he knew she was good and that she needed help. "It's going to be okay," Coby promised, cutting the lower half of her teal cape with kimono before using it as a makeshift bandage for her arm. She whimpered from the pain and he knew it was only a stopgap at best. "I should have something that—" "Stupid bastard," Diamante yelled, the words nearly lost in Helmeppo's simultaneous cry of, "Trihorn." The pirate of the pair whipped his pistol around. Koby's eyes widened, his body moving on instinct, ready to cover the princess with his own form. Diamante unloaded the remaining 5 shots he had, but Coby felt none of them. "Goo," Kairos coughed, blood dribbling down from the corners of his mouth. He had his sword stabbed in the ground, supporting the weight on the same side, missing its leg. He was almost thankful for the toy transformation now. He'd been changed 10 years ago in the prime of his youth and had returned with that same body. Had he a body in its late 30s or early 40s, those bullets would have probably killed him. "Rebecca, are you hurt?" Father," she whimpered. "Fuck," Coby cursed as he assessed the girl's still bleeding stump. "Damn it. There has to be something." His eyes widened, his hand reaching to his pocket to pull something out. A seemingly discolored apple. "No time to explain, but this devil fruit should be able to heal your arm. At least eventually, but it will also make your body more durable. Do you want it?" "Give it to her," Kairos ordered. Coby could see Diamante stalking toward them over the soldier's shoulder. "Are you? Do it," he hissed through the pain, getting to his foot and turning. "I shall hold off Diamante." "But, now, pirate. Swordsman, with me." Kairos mustered his strength with a pained wince, leaping into battle as the samurai joined him on either side. "Rebecca?" Coby asked, tapping her cheek to make the one-armed princess look at him. "Listen, this is going to taste nasty." He ripped the purple apple in half and shoved half of it into her mouth. Rebecca tried to throw up. If anything in the world could make her forget her current location and situation, it was the sudden taste comparable to old socks that had never been taken off except to wash in urine until such time they could be coated in the hair of an unwashed goat and set on fire just to be grilled with rotten crabapples, but that was underselling it. Coby held her shoulder down with one hand, his other over her lips until she swallowed, only then letting her cough up what remained. "Rebecca, listen to me," he ordered, grabbing her face to stare deep into her eyes. He could already see her skin starting to take on a pinker hue. "Remember that you're human. That was a zone fruit and it's going to want you to transform now, but we can't afford that. Repeat after me. I'm a human. I am a human." Was it his imagination or was she shrinking? "I will stay human. I will stay human." Hockey coated his hands, the pirate doing what he could to try to hold back the change. More force. "I will stay human." The transformation stopped as far as Coby could tell, but it wasn't without evidence. The most notable were a pair of tri-pointed coral-like protrusions where Rebecca's ears had been, external gills if Coby remembered his brief research into axolotls correctly. Luckily, such creatures also had lungs, making the young man pretty sure they had evolved on the Grand Line. Where else would a creature evolve to also be able to breathe air naturally? Still, decorative gills and pinkened skin was a fair bit better than having to carry around the princess as a tiny salamander in the heat of battle. His eyes went to her major wound which, already, was clotting. It seemed the rumored zone constitution increase was true even for a seemingly weak fruit such as this. "Rebecca, stay awake," Coby demanded. "It's still dangerous herein." His haki flared, one pink-haired youth grabbing the other and diving to the side. Multiple candy spikes speared the ground where they'd been, the man of the pair sending a glare toward the marine being beset upon by the samurai and another 3 poorly drawn creatures of Kanjuro's make. A dogman, a catman, and a turtle creature of some kind. As Coby watched, Helmeppo spun, forming an executioner-style axe he used to cut the cat thing in twain. "Watch out for stray attacks," the pirate summarized, now focused on the attackers. He reached up, drawing his shokusha. Sugar shotgun. A multitude of candy bullets shot from the marine's hands and arms, ripping holes through the remaining 2 drawings. Those same shots blasted both Kinemon and Kanjuro away, neither swords having the width to block them all at once. "Ah, sweet Vic." Coby appeared as if from thin air, his face carefully blank and haki swirling around his blade. Helmeppo gasped, layering his own over his arms and axe. Despite this, the pirate's blade cut more than halfway into the marine's created weapon, driving the blonde backward. "How the hell?" Helmeppo demanded. "You only just unlocked armament." "Because I'm actually fighting for something." Coby spun, forcing the young vice admiral away from a diagonal slash as he drew Imono with his offhand. "Unlike you, I have people to protect." "How stupid," Helmeppo snarled. "If someone is so weak that they need protecting, then they aren't worth your time. You don't deserve that uniform." Coby rolled, barely avoiding the spear that stabbed outward from Helmeppo's chest. Imono shot upward, severing the point from the haft and causing the marine to wince. "Come on, Helmeppo. I'll show you real strength." The ground started undulating, the fighters, as individuals who sailed regularly, barely acknowledged the unnatural waves as they charged each other. For Rebecca and Kairos, 2 individuals who had never been off the island, this was a new level of disorienting. The former rolled onto her stomach, crawling forward as she kept her eye on the fights. "You've really pissed me off, soldier," Diamante muttered, eyeing the man. Kairos was covered in lacerations. Blood still dripped down his legs from his torso, but the man refused to show even a hint of pain in his narrowed eyes. "Just die like your poor wife, forgotten all over again." "I think not," Kairos growled, "but if I am to die, I intend to take you with me." TCH. Diamante blocked the former gladiator's swing, but he could feel his arms shaking. It was clear the easy life in Dressrosa had had its own toll on him, though not in such a noticeable way as it had Senor Pink. Compared to his decade of leisure, Kairos was just as strong as he had been the day they arrived, only his missing leg offering the disadvantage that kept them even. Luckily, he could compound this with his rolling fields. He charged forward with a wave, their blades clashing nearly too fast to see. Kairos was on the defensive, having to backpedal, keep his balance on one foot, and block the attacks all at the same time, a feat that only showed he lived up to his reputation. Still, with such odds stacked against him, it was only a matter of time until he miscalculated. Diamante spun, knocking aside the warrior's blade with his steel cape before stepping into his guard. Kairos coughed as he felt the sword slide between his ribs. The metal was cold, needles like ice prickling in his chest. Rebecca screamed something, but it was lost in the blood roaring in his ears. He did what came naturally. He leaned into the blade, wrapping his arms around Diamante. The pirate gasped, trying to yank the sword free, but Kairos had an iron grip. Flaring his powers on his cape only allowed the former toy to tighten his hold, pinning the executive against him. "What do you think you've accomplished?" the pirate demanded. "You'll be dead in minutes." "Perhaps," Kairos agreed with a bloody smile, "but you'll be dead before that." "What do you?" "This is for my mother." Diamante only turned his head slightly to the voice, just enough to see a flash of pink hair and a glint of steel before the sword was buried in his throat. His eyes widened, looking down on the princess, dark pink external gills, blood-splattered light pink skin, holding her grandfather's sword in her remaining hand. "Down," she ordered, pressure on the blade forcing Diamante to his knees. He tried to speak, but his esophagus was already severed. Rebecca took a single moment, reflecting on their mirrored positions from the death of King Riku. A part of her wanted to speak, to monologue like Diamante had, but she knew she couldn't risk anything with the Doflamingo Familia. "Farewell, Diamante. You will be missed by no one." Like the pirate had done to King Riku, Rebecca did to him, ripping the sword out through the side. He flailed and floundered like a fish out of water for several seconds, hands fruitlessly grasping at his half-neck. He slowed and stopped. "He's finally dead," Kairos wheezed, falling backward. Rebecca jumped at the squelch. "Father," she cried, running to him. He still had Diamante's borrowed sword sticking out of his chest. his breath shuddering and shallow. Father, father, please, don't die. I don't think I have a choice, Rebecca, he breathed. One of his hands rose, grabbing the one his daughter still possessed. I'm sorry. I wish I could have been more to you. Don't say that, the princess whimpered, her tears rolling down her cheeks. We'll just patch you up. You know we can't, the man said with a shake of his head, his breathing labored. I'm not a toy anymore, Rebecca, but Doflamingo will fall today with or without me. I know it. When that happens, Dressrosa will need a new leader. I don't know anything about leading. I need you, father. You will learn. I only ask you this. Don't hold the people's past actions against them. Father, you look so much like your mother, he whispered, his voice growing faint, his eyes distant and unfocused. He gave a small, sad smile. I know you'll be the queen, she could have been, I know it, Rebecca. His hand went slack. Shit, Helmeppo growled, holding the bleeding wound on his side. No, I refuse. I refuse. You will not beat me again. I have been trained by the fleet admiral himself. Oh, Coby questioned, parrying another candy-throwing knife with barely a thought. Helmeppo's rage made his plans obvious to the Rossit's observation. At this point, he didn't even need his fruit. And how much time has the mad dog had to train you since he took over? I hear the fleet admiral job is mostly paperwork. Nothing like training every day with the retired right hand of the pirate king. Don't mock me, I'll kill you. Trihorn, candy cataclysm, syrup. Coby grabbed Helmeppo by the face, his hockey-coated hand feeling the shock in the blonde's expression. One foot came back, sweeping the marines as the pirate drove him downward. The logia's head hit the ground with a hard crack. That might not leave a mark, Coby muttered with a shake of his head, but he's gonna have one hell of a headache. A part of him stopped, considering stabbing the man while he was down. Helmeppo was Ines, probably a murderer at this point and with too much leeway because of Sakazuki's influence, but Coby just couldn't. Killing the blonde when he was in such a defenseless state would only serve to make him a murderer, too. No better than Helmeppo. Lizard, Leo called, scurrying toward him. There was a host of marines nearly on his tail. I can't hold them off any longer. He heard Kinnaman groan, a glance showing him the taller samurai standing supported by the one he assumed must be Kanjuro, the former with an arm around the latter's shoulders. Gunshots split the air, the front row of the coming marines falling to the hail of bullets. The cavalry, killer crossdresser, Aizu began from a nearby rooftop only for his voice to stutter. We're too late. Coby, too, was at a loss for words as he took in the aftermath of the other fight. He walked over, kneeling by the sobbing princess. Rebecca's tears fell freely, splashing one by one on her father's body. Rebecca? He asked. She didn't look his way, no change in her posture showing she'd even heard him. The other fighters, Kinnaman, Kanjuro, and Leo the dwarf, joined them, silent. Slowly, carefully, the pirate laid a hand on her shoulder. She flinched. Rebecca? Why? She muttered, the pair now ignoring the CC crack of gunfire and the yelling of the marines. Father, grandfather, they both died protecting me. They saw the leader you could become, Coby told her. Frankly, he didn't have any actual reason to give, but he hoped he at least sounded wise with his logical guess. They didn't have any more time for a panic attack or something similar. They loved you and saw the future in you. They knew who you would be and chose to entrust the country to you. But I can't, she whispered with a hiss. They did so many things to me. They said such terrible things in the Colosseum. How can I? I can't. You can and you will, Coby promised. Let's just get through this day, first. She sniffled, nodding, but everything seemed too much for her. She started to shrink, her body morphing into that of a small salamander. Her coloration was mostly pink, but her torso had patches of gold and blue where her clothing had been affected by her new devil fruit powers, thankfully. Coby didn't want to have to explain to anyone why he may have been carrying around a naked princess in a war zone. He scooped her up, cradling her with one arm. She was less than a foot long in her full axolotl form, but he was glad to see her severed arm was no longer bleeding. Kinnaman, go break the block of candy to get the other dwarves out. We need to get out of here. But King Riku and Lord Kairos, there's nothing we can do for them now. We need to deal with Doflamingo and the marines first. Very well, the samurai swallowed with a wince. Our new priority is protecting Princess Rebecca. Thunder Soldier and the rest of us were on our way to save our own princess. Leo piped up as Kinnaman and Kanjuro went to the candy block. Aizu's division kept the marines locked outside the plaza with their gunfire as the other Wano native joined his old friends. Princess Mancheri, Coby clarified. Leo turned to him, shocked. She's with Princess Viola, Rebecca's aunt. Viola rescued her during my captain's first assault on the castle. She should be meeting with most of the rest of my crew at the Colosseum as we speak. Then his remaining dwarves will go there, Leo decided with a frown. To think they'd lost half their force to one man and the element of surprise. Still, if Mancheri was safe, that was all that mattered. Their goal was complete. Be careful. The streets to the castle plateau were empty, something that did not sit well with the pirates running through them. Luffy didn't think much of it, but both Law and Jinbei found it suspicious and Zoro had a bad feeling. That, however, might have been all the jerking Luffy's arms were doing to him. It wasn't his fault the city kept changing its layout. Though suspicious, the lack of enemy combatants made the trip quick, the quartet hurrying up the now pot-marked stairs toward the half-destroyed remains of the castle. "He's not inside," Luffy declared as they approached. "I thought he'd be on the roof," Law muttered. "That or the throne room." "No, he's around the back," Zoro noted. "He's choosing the battlefield." "But for what reason?" Jinbei questioned. They would solve nothing if they stood around and talked, only giving Doflamingo a chance to ambush them. Law pointed at Zoro and Jinbei before pointing to the right side of the building. He then grabbed Luffy and ran left. They'd hoped to catch the man in a pincer, finish him before he could do any more damage to Dressrosa, but both pairs found a Doflamingo staring at them as they rounded the corner. So, Law found some more little friends, the Doflamingos said in tandem, standing back to back in the field where before Coby and Grace had fought Ezekiel Joan. "Rorinoa Zoro, this is our first time meeting. Jinbei, I'd wondered where you'd been. And Straw Hat, of course. And Law, I see you got a new leg." "Oh, I've been here," Jinbei replied, falling into a battle-ready stance. "You have some crewmates with terrifying abilities, Doflamingo." "Yes, so I've been told." "Room," Law roared, charging forward as transparent blue overtook the surroundings. Kikoku flashed forward, the surgeon of death intent on severing both Doflamingo and his clone, lethally or otherwise. The other three didn't let the opportunity pass, each joining the attack at a different angle. Second gear. Jet stamp. One sword style. Death lion song. 10,000 brick fist. Both the warlord and his clone grinned their twin maniacal grins, raising their arms. Kikoku and Wado Ichimonji stopped short, the same true for Luffy's foot and Jinbei's fist. A ripple of force washed over the identical pair, but it did little more than ruffle the feathers on his pink coat. "I'm not surprised," Law, both Doflamingo and his simulacrum said. "Disappointed, yes, but not surprised." "Give up," the captain of the Heart Pirates demanded. "Your entire crew is either dead or unconscious. You're the only one left, you lost." "Yes, so it seems," the pair frowned. The other pirates guessed he was scanning the island with his observation. His scowl deepened. Gladius, Trebol, Macvis, Lao Ji, Pika, and Diamante dead, the rest unconscious or routed. "I must say, they didn't perform to usual standards today." "I expected a stronger reaction," Zoro admitted, his arms straining against whatever held his sword. "Oh, I'm furious. I expected so much more from them after all our years together, but they grew lax and weak in our time here. It's no matter, though. Once I kill you, I'll have no shortage of devil fruits and volunteers to help me rebuild my family." "Why would anyone join you?" Luffy questioned. "Can't you feel their hate? The country wants you gone for what you did." "Perhaps, and that may scare a mortal like you, Straw Hat. I, however, exist in a higher status. I do what I want, when I want, and to whomever I want to. Do you think I care for the feelings of the petulant insects or this petty country? Dressrosa ends today. Within the next hour, in fact." "What?" Luffy muttered. "Oh yes. When I felt you all coming, I started shrinking the birdcage." "You have 1 hour before this country, the island itself, and all the lives on it are cut to ribbons by my string. Every building and fountain and statue, every man, woman, child, and animal, devil fruit user, enemy, and ally, every one of them will be cut to nothing. Ah, it seems poor Dellinger is the first victim. Well, when I'm done here, I can simply start over and rebuild. A new family in a new place. I'll certainly have plenty of powerful devil fruits at my disposal." "I can't say I'm surprised," Jinbei muttered. "You dragons are all the same. It's just cold comfort knowing that humans see the same cruelty." "If we aren't monsters, we die," the blonde replied. "Ah, but I think this thing between me and Law is mostly a family matter family." One of the Doflamingos moved, the strings connected to Luffy, Zoro, and Jinbei flinging them bodily off the cliff. Luffy yelled, reaching for the cliffside with his free hand, but the same image kicked his hand away, jumping off to follow the Straw Hats down into the city below. "And then there were two," Doflamingo sneered. Law twisted his hand, replacing himself with a pebble on the warlord's other side. Strings danced around Doflamingo's form, the hockey coating them, deflecting each of Law's slashes as he batted the blade away. "Korra would be disappointed to see you so weak, Law." "You have no right," Law bit out. Corazon was weak. He let his emotions control him. He let himself get attached to a tool and it got him killed. You got him killed. You killed him, your own brother. He was a traitor and a fool, just like our father, and just like you. Doflamingo turned, his arm slashing forward. Law dodged the first strain but failed to notice the second one, the one hidden in the shadow of the first. His eyes widened as his hand was severed at the wrist. Law screamed, clutching his severed hand with his left, his sword hitting the ground beside him. His narrowed eyes rose as Doflamingo towered over him. "It will take a while for your friends to deal with my string clone and get back up here," He smirked, pulling a highly decorated pistol from his coat. Let's make them a surprise for when they return, why don't we? Coby charged through the streets with Kinemon, Kanjuro, and Aizu on his heels, the four men equally primed for action as they ran. The Tontata that remained had gone ahead to the Colosseum to confirm Koby's claim that Mancheri was there and safe, leaving the humans to bring up the rear behind them. Coby, leading the group, kept his eyes peeled for any buildings that seemed ready to collapse, especially if he felt the light of some individual nearby, typically some civilian or marine who had been a toy and, thus, had been left behind in the initial evacuation. Luckily, it seemed most of the buildings that were no longer sound had already succumbed to gravity, leaving those on the cusp and at risk for others few and far between. For those Coby suspected would be labeled too far gone to be safely repaired, he went ahead and collapsed them. In one hand Coby held the exhausted salamander that was the country's youngest princess. He was unsure whether the newest zone user was sleeping or unconscious given the shock of what had transpired with her killing Diamante but still losing her father and grandfather. Either way, all he knew at the moment was it was his mission to keep her safe until Luffy could deal with Doflamingo. Whatever trauma she had suffered, and would continue to suffer through for some time, could wait until the greatest threat was finished and they knew tomorrow would come for them. There was no point dealing with it if they didn't live long enough to do so. I must say, Kanjuro commented. It was quite the shock to see your magic and learn you were on our side, Sir Coby. I was tempted to attack you outright on the basis of your powers alone. I understand what you mean, Kanjuro, Kinemon agreed. I attempted to attack Sir Kaku when I first witnessed his own transformation magic. Momonosuke now bears magic with striking resemblance to Kaido's. What in Terabang? Aizu gaped. Momonosuke ate a devil fruit. A what? Kanjuro questioned. Do they not know about devil fruits in Wano? Coby asked. He blinked. Hold on. Wind told me about Kinemon attacking him, but what's the deal? I don't understand. Is there some reason you two hate zone users? Is that what you call transformation magics? The vast majority of Kaido's warriors have incredibly similar powers, Kinemon explained. Kaido himself can become a dragon like Momonosuke can now, but his coloration is blue rather than pink. Word on the seas is the beast pirates got their name because their devil fruit users are almost exclusively zones, Aizu put in. The higher ranks possess ancient zones like yours, Trihorn. To my knowledge, there aren't any logias or paramecias in their ranks. If there are, they don't have bounties. That says nothing of the monstrosities that we witnessed before our escape, Kanjuro added. They had human elements and minds, but their corporeal forms were combined and twisted with bastardizations of nature. Those must be the results of the smile fruits, Coby reasoned. Not to mention the manias Velo created that Nami and the others had to fight back on Punk Hazard. They might not be the same, but I'd bet Zoro-sensei's booze they're connected. That would be a logical guess, Kinemon agreed. He hadn't fought them himself, having been sent after Velo with Kaku when she first abducted Ace, but he had seen and remembered the Lovecraftian nightmares the manias were. I still do not understand how such creatures could have come to exist. Even those twisted humans amongst Kaido's men were only one animal each. What are you talking about? Aizu questioned. My crew recently tore through Punk Hazard where Caesar Clown was performing illegal experiments, Coby explained. One of his underlings was a member of Kaido's crew who was experimenting with smile fruits, which Caesar was making for Kaido. According to law, they're artificial devil fruits, but exclusively zones. Velo turned at least 5 people into horrible monsters beyond anything I saw when I wasn't impelled down, apparently. His other underling was loyal to Doflamingo and abducted her, leaving Caesar to our mercy. That's how Doflamingo seemed to know you all were coming, Aizu deduced. Yeah, that. Coby stopped, his gaze going to the top of an untouched building. He frowned. Follow me and stay close but don't do anything until I say so, he ordered. The samurai, and former samurai, exchanged looks but didn't respond as Coby morphed into his slasher mode and jumped, clearing half the building's height in a single leap. His unbroken nails, the others snapped by Ezekiel Jones, would need some time to heal much like his central horn, dug into the structure's exterior, giving him the footholds that he needed to jump the rest of the way there. He really needed to ask Sanji, Mary, and Kaku for tips about moonwalk. Tempest Kick was fine even if he didn't use it much compared to his flying slashes and he had a good handle on shave, but moonwalk seemed like it would be really useful for moments like this. He cleared the wall, landing on the rooftop with enough space for his companions to land behind him upon their imminent arrivals. A single glance confirmed Axolotl Rebecca was still situated in the palm of his hand, the poor girl still unresponsive but alive. The Rosset turned his attention to the lights, the spirits, he'd felt that drew him here. Situated on the roof were 3 men, none of them overly familiar to the young pirate. One had red hair and a much darker shade of beard and another was clean-shaven with scars that passed over his closed eyes. Those 2 were seated and seemed to be in the middle of a card game of some sort. The scarred man's hand turned outward. The third man, who had distinctive mutton chops Coby was sure he'd seen before somewhere, was standing and had clearly been in battle until recently. The most defining trait they shared was their white and blue coats, though one was wearing purple. "What the fuck are you two doing sitting there?" Coby demanded, white-hot anger bubbling up in his gut. He didn't direct the question at the third man. He'd already taken battle damage, which was more than could be said about the other two. Besides, he looked just as angry as Coby felt. "Pirates," said man yelled, falling back and drawing a sword. The younger of the sitting men raised a hand to stop him even as Coby gripped the handle of his shokusha with his free hand. "Ah, try horn," Jonathan said. "We never met on your gaunt into G-8. Care to play a hand with us? There's a goddamned war ripping this city-state apart and two of the highest-ranking Marines here are just sitting around doing nothing in Terabang. We have been closely monitoring the situation," the redhead argued. "I have kept most of my own men out of combat except to defend the evacuated civilians. We cannot legally go after Doflamingo because of his status, so we have decided to let you pirates take care of this situation with him for us." "You," that anger flared, Coby's limbs shaking as he beheld the admiral and vice admiral before him. "No civilians have been harmed," Fujitora picked up. "Frankly, that's a miracle at this point. The only ones injured or killed during this ordeal have been pirates, Marines, or those openly rebelling against the crown, making them national revolutionaries. The pair of us staying out of it allows you to succeed. Are you telling me you doing nothing is you doing something?" The tone of his voice caused the Wano natives behind him to grip their weapons. Aizu going so far as to aim his pistols, but Coby didn't unsheath his shokusha even if his grip went white-knuckled. "Do you know how many lives have been lost because of your inaction?" "Everyone here knows battle could cost them their lives," Jonathan began. "No," the young pirate interrupted. "No, you don't get to give me that death in battle and honorable bullshit when you could have prevented at least some of those deaths just by being there. I've known since I joined Captain Luffy that there was corruption at every level of the Marines, but the levels you fall to always seemed I saw a glimmer of hope when I learned about Dagger." "How do you?" Jonathan blinked. "But when even the commanders who are clearly strong enough to make a difference sit back and do nothing, I shouldn't be, but I'm shocked." "I hate to agree with the pirate," Vice Admiral, Lieutenant Drake muttered. "Over 100 Marines died in the Colosseum today in a lost battle. We could have used your help. You could have chosen not to side with the homicidal, dictatorial sycophant just because he's a celestial dragon with a broken devil fruit and a god complex." Coby roared. "I understand the world isn't black and white like I used to think, but one side here is clearly in the wrong, and your organization chose to fight for it just because his ancestors founded the world government a long time ago and have been literally above the law since. One of his men murdered 3 of the previous royal family, 2 of them right in front of the princess, and bragged about it. That is a very heavy accusation, Fujitora, for no one but an admiral could wear that sort of coat." The realization only made Coby's anger burn brighter, warned. "Then why don't you ask the princess when she wakes up?" the pirate demanded, gesturing to the axolotl in his hand. "She might be down an arm, a father, a mother, a grandfather, and had to be force-fed a devil fruit just to not bleed out, but I'm sure she'll be perfectly amicable to you assholes. I know. You can take her on a tour of the world. Show her Sabaody where you can sell her into slavery to shut her up." "Slavery in Terabang," Drake echoed, aghast. Notably, though they flinched, neither Jonathan nor Fujitora looked surprised at the information. "Yeah, apparently Doflamingo's funding that, too. And let me tell you, it's not fun being on the other side of those chains. Maybe you should open a damn inquiry into that and pray to go to your illustrious bosses don't make you the merchandise for asking too many questions like they did Captain Havre." Lieutenant Drake jerked. "How do you know that name?" "Captain Havre was beset upon by pirates," Jonathan tried to argue. "The reports." "Your reports were wrong," Coby interrupted. "I met Havre myself. We were locked in chains together but he was taken away, sold without an auction. I don't know what happened to him in the end. I just know that he said it was CP6 that abducted him from his ship in the dead of night." Fujitora's grip on his sword tightened, anger flaring across his face as an inch of steel glinted in the sunlight. Gravity in the area spiked, but Coby kept himself rooted and upright, his stance widening to support the increased weight. Idly, a part of his brain recognized the hamon on his simple sword as one of the 12 Seijo, or supreme grade. Considering there were only 12 and they were all quite different from each other, he identified the one in Fujitora's hands as the Yakuza Kassen. Clearly, this was not a man to face head-on. "I will have to have words with some of my coworkers when all this is over," Fujitora decided, clicking his sword back into place. The weight of the air eased up, Coby hearing Kinemon and Kanjuro suck in large breaths behind him. "It seems both of us will need to," Jonathan commented, the same steel in his eyes. "Jonathan called you Tri-Horn." "Yes, that is my moniker," the youngest in the area confirmed. "Tri-Horn, Coby of the Straw Hat Pirates. I thank you for bringing this information to our attention. In return, I shall offer you a warning. We have our orders to take you and yours in because of your growing notoriety and track record. Given the number of Marines currently on the island, we probably have ships surrounding it already. If you wish to escape the island with your freedom, You will have to leave immediately before the dust settles or otherwise have allies pull some legally risky and very costly maneuvers. After your battle today, none of you will be in any state to face me and Jonathan, much less the remainder of our forces. We'll keep that in mind, Coby replied, turning his back on the Marines. And by the way, do something about Helmeppo, would you? He's becoming the mad dog's mad little puppy. Vice Admiral Helmeppo isn't supposed to be on the island, Fujitora said. His mindset and actions related to your crew were deemed irrationally biased by independent review. Then he chose to ignore orders. Because of that, the former King Riku, Rebecca's father Kairos, and nearly 100 dwarves are dead. I managed to defeat him without killing him this time, but I can't say if the next time will be different. Deal with him, then maybe we can talk about integrity in your organization. Kinemon, Kanjuro, Aizu. We've got somewhere to be and a princess to protect. He glared backwards. Unlike some people. The four jumped from the roof, Aizu doing so last after clearly debating with himself if it would be worth it to put a bullet in each of the Marines there. He must have decided against it since he holstered his pistols and followed, leaving Fujitora, Jonathan, and Drake on the roof physically unharmed. Mentally, however, the three Marines were still reeling from the pirate's harsh words. I failed, Fujitora muttered, feeling tears roll down his cheeks. I let my fear of legal repercussions prevent me from doing the right thing. I left the hard work to others, and now I missed a chance to save lives. It seemed like the logical course at the time. Jonathan tried, back before we knew about the toys. That's no excuse. Fujitora turned his head upward, his blind eyes staring into the sky he could not see. Is there something above us? There are lines in the sky, Drake answered. Reports say it's shrinking, shearing apart anything it passes through. Fujitora nodded to himself. Jonathan, Drake, all Marines on the island have new orders. They are to arrest all pirates in their vicinity, the Doflamingo pirates included. All others are to do everything in their power to stop or slow those strains, and we will be no exception. Once we make a breach, we will work to keep it open and get as many civilians out as possible. Am I clear? Yes, sir. Gum gum balloon. Luffy spun, sucking air into his gut. He landed, his engorged torso absorbing the kinetic energy of his fall and preparing to rebound only for Zoro and Jinbei to land on him just a second before he did. The force caused him to exhale, deflating, until he was left underneath his two crewmates. That's quite the useful ability, Luffy, Jinbei commented, getting off the rubber man. You get used to it after he throws you around enough, Zoro grunted, also getting off. Luffy laughed, dusting his clothes off and standing. Zoro drew his swords. No time to relax, we've got company. He threw 4 flying slashes into the air in something of a square before jumping, his hockey-coated swords clashing with the string-covered fingers of Doflamingo as he fell on them. Black lightning flashed and stone shattered as Zoro hit the ground again, his legs absorbing the impact this time. Jet pistol. 10,000 brick fist. The air pressure rapidly condensed before exploding as Luffy's and Jinbei's fists met above Zoro's swords, the pressure wave sending all 3 pirates backward. Doflamingo watched from several feet away, his crooked smile never wavering as he allowed his foes to recollect themselves. We don't have time to play around, Luffy said, his eyes narrowing on the blonde. Traffy's all alone up there. Doflamingo's smile widened but he said nothing, his silence doing nothing to elevate the worry in their guts. There were 2 of them, Zoro recalled, layering his swords in haki as he drew all 3. If we're down here, then Law's alone with the other one. All the more reason to hurry up, the captain growled. We'll follow you, Luffy, Jinbei grunted. Jet stamp, Luffy shot forward in a burst of steam, his sandaled foot smashing into the crossed arms of the Doflamingo they found themselves facing. His observation flared, prompting Luffy to dig in with friction and push himself upward. For the blonde lashed out with an unannounced 5 colors string that sliced through the air where the rival captain had been. Zoro caught the strings with Kitetsu and Shisui, his own haki forcing the seemingly unbreakable strings into the ground. Jinbei jumped over him, only grunting as he barreled toward the warlord. Doflamingo vanished, vacating his position as the fisherman's fist came down, caving the ground without contact. Jet whip. Luffy whipped his leg around, limiting Doflamingo's options for escape. The man's smile only widened, not moving as he grabbed the rubber man's leg. Luffy's eyes widened slightly as he started to retract, but for a kinesthetic learner like him, he wouldn't make the same battle mistake twice. Luffy leaned into the momentum, clotheslining the blonde and driving his back into the street. Doflamingo's smile never wavered. Something doesn't feel right, Luffy commented, his eyes narrowing. He feels soft. Soft? Zoro echoed, clearly confused. Not soft, but that's the best word I've got. Ah, I see, Jinbei nodded. I'd wondered if this was the real Doflamingo in a feign, but he did just give us his string clone. The bastard can clone himself? The swordsman demanded. Not literally. He simply made a copy using thousands or millions of color strain he's forced together and is reacting in response to our movements in his observation. The more trouble Law gives the original, the slower this one would be to respond. If it's not real, why's this one feel like him? The behatted pirate questioned. It's pumped full of Doflamingo's hockey, the fishman answered. So it's a mystery fake, Luffy muttered. No, you dumbass, Zoro grumbled. Louder, he asked. Should we be worried about this one's reaction speed, then?
Yes, I'd say so, Jinbei nodded. Traffy's got the other one and the better he does, the slower this one gets, Luffy summarized. Simple enough. Let's hit this thing fast and hard.
I thought you'd never ask, the Verde grinned. 1060 caliber Phoenix. Arabesque brick fist. Luffy leapt away as the ranged attacks fell upon the clone. He didn't wait for the dust cloud to clear or to see the results. Pressed as they were for time. Jet Gatling. Luffy felt his fists land several times but he didn't let up, each miss increasing the density of the obscuration. He felt rather than saw Zoro and Jinbei repositioning, so he kept up his onslaught until the pair stopped, flanking the dust cloud. Only then did he pull away. 2 sword style. 2 gorilla slash, water shot. A pair of flying cuts in an X and a number of water droplets at the speed of bullets converged, the dust in the air swirling in on itself as the attacks passed through. Jinbei jumped away, avoiding Zoro's attack. Motion froze save for the slowly settling dust. Don't drop your guard, Zoro warned. I missed. Well, don't miss next time, Luffy ordered. You do seem to be the best counter to this simulacrum, Jinbei commented. Compared to mine and Luffy's blunt attacks, one good cut should be enough to destroy this clone. I can think of some. Duck. The 3 pirates dove away at Luffy's warning, each barely avoiding the tightly wound balls of string that threatened to pierce them at high velocity. The Doflamingo clone's smile never faltered despite the scuffs to its outer layer from Luffy's blows, the thing appearing from the fading dust cloud with its fingers shaped into a handgun firing string bullets at each of them. Even Luffy was forced to dodge seeing as said bullets were pumped full of hockey. Tiger trap. Zoro yelled, charging in from the side. The clone turned, swinging upward with a hand trailing another 5 colors string. The defensive attack could not stand against Zoro's swords, but it did hold out long enough for the clone to get away. It spun, spreading strings out to debris that were then pulled from their resting places. 1060 caliber Phoenix. Zoro cut through the largest chunk, most of a building's wall being sliced into a dozen smaller pieces and the string pulling it severed, but that did nothing to affect the other 24 stone chunks swinging in. Zoro was forced to retreat as his former position was swallowed under rubble. This must be the extent of the clone's abilities, Jinbei observed, pulverizing 2 stone slabs that came for him with his sharkskin palm technique. Doflamingo himself can puppet humans and the like. If the clone could as well, at least one of us would be forced to fight the others. Great, the swordsman muttered, small mercies. Zoro, Luffy called. Jinbei, take care of the rubble for me. Captain's orders, Zoro grinned, glancing at the fishman with his lone eye. Let's go. The pair charged forward, the clone's fingers dancing as it controlled the debris at the end of its strings. Sword and blue fists blurred, slicing and crushing the veritable avalanche that tried to either stop them or slip past to the captain. Zoro, Jinbei grunted, snatching a near boulder out of the air above his head before smashing it into the ground. Can you create a space down the middle I can reach into? Of course, the one-eyed man replied, the air around his swords waving as he layered his haki into the blades. He jumped, twisting to swing all 3 in the same direction. A sharpened, black wave shot from the weapons, slicing down and through the constantly renewed horde of stone. A small mountain blocked visual between them and the clone, that amount of rock stopping the cut short of severing the simulacrum, but the lost visual was of little concern. Jinbei lowered his stance and shoved his hands forward, palms out, his eyes closed as he focused his observation. With a grunt of exertion, the fishman took hold of the water in the air as he always did with his fishman karate. Slowly at first, then with a sudden jerk, he swung outward, the thin cut Zoro had made becoming a great divide leading to the defensive mountain behind which the clone hid. Now, Luffy, twin grizzly magnum, Luffy zoomed past them, his massive, black, expanded forearms and hands trailing behind with enough displaced air to ruffle his allies' clothes. He growled and jumped upon reaching the halfway point, yanking his fists forward. They were staggered slightly, his left just ahead of his right. The first impact crushed the defensive wall, turning rock, stone, and debris into so much dust. The second passed through the hole left behind, Luffy feeling the impact of some humanoid shape held there until his fist smashed into one of the few undamaged buildings which proceeded to cease to exist. Luffy landed, panting, as he took in the results of his handiwork. The clone laid spread eagle in a hole of its own shape, its smile unwavering. It's not over, Luffy grunted. Zoro, the Verde was already moving, having anticipated his captain's words. His path curved in from the left, Shisui trailing behind carving a line in the road. Tower climb return. The weapons cleaved into the earth through the clone. Its smile never faded as its color drained away, the strings that had connected it to the original broken. What had appeared to be the warlord fell apart into naught but a pile of white, inanimate string. "We don't have time to celebrate," Jinbei reminded them, turning his eye to the castle plateau. "We need to get up there quickly." "Running will take too long," Luffy thought aloud. "Jinbei, can you throw us?" "I won't get you all the way," he answered. "Certainly not both of you." "I can get you the rest of the way," Zoro offered. "Jinbei and I can join you later. Just focus on saving Law and beating Doflamingo." Luffy nodded, eyeing the cliffside at the top of which Law had been left alone with the tyrannical warlord he soared to tear down. "Alright, we'll go up as high as we can first." The trio ran at the wall, jumping onto its side and charging upward as best they could. Jinbei, with his bulk, was the first to slow as they expected would be the case. Upon his call, both Zoro and Luffy jumped onto his hands. "Go!" he yelled, pushing THLL his strength. The pair of humans shot upward with the added boost even as gravity started to claim the fishman, but they trusted Jinbei to land safely. It was the halfway point when both started quickly losing their speed. That was Luffy's cue for the next part of their plan. His hand reached upward, grabbing a barely there fingerhold that was just enough to swing him over toward his first mate. Said first mate drew two of his swords and crossed them over his chest, their blunt sides catching Luffy's feet. "We believe in you, Captain," he said, slicing to send Luffy upward on a wave of force just before gravity started to take him, too. Luffy didn't have time to worry about Zoro's landing, placing his full belief in Jinbei to catch him. Instead, he needed to concern himself with finding finger and footholds as he scaled the cliffside at high speed, liberal use of the rubber body maintaining his upward momentum. By the time he reached the top, a stone of worry had sunk in his gut. He didn't feel any animosity in his observation. In fact, he barely felt anything, much less two different spirits clashing like he should have. His feet settled on the grass, his eyes rising to the horrific sight hanging from the ruined castle. Trafalgar Law was dead. His body hung from the stone wall by a noose, his arms severed at the shoulders and still leaking crimson blood. His sword Kikoku was stabbed in the ground below with his black-spotted white hat sitting upon the pommel, said blood trailing down the late pirate's reel and peg legs to drip onto the large sword as if to further taunt the dead man that it wasn't his target's blood that now stained the gray steel, turning the white hat red. His eyes were wide, his face forever frozen in a rictus of pain, a pair of lines having carved his cheeks into a terrible imitation of a smile extending from the corners of his mouth. "Trafi," Luffy whispered. "Ah, Straw Hat," Doflamingo grinned from atop his seat above the body. "You and your friends beat my string clone faster than I was expecting you to, but you weren't fast enough." Poor Law finally got the traitor's death he always deserved. He never screamed, so I'll at least give him that. He was a pretty poor sport about it. "You bastard," Luffy roared, his nails digging into his palms with the force of his shaking fists. "You killed him." "Did you expect different?" the blonde questioned. "I was always above Law's weight class no matter how much stronger he got." "Oh, he got one good hit on me." The warlord gestured to a dark bruise on his abdomen where the late captain's final gamma knife had landed. But it was simply too little too late. "Do you think you'll fare any better all alone?" Luffy didn't respond, sucking in a breath. He opened his eyes slowly, a miasma of haki rising from his form to warp the air around him. "The time for talking is over, Mingo," Luffy growled, his dark eyes narrowing, "and so is your rule. It's time for you to fall." It was a time like any other on the Polar Tang, the yellow submarine of the Heart Pirates. Crewmates laughed with each other in their white jumpsuits with the Jolly Roger emblazoned on both the left breast and larger on the back, said outfits easily staving off the chill that came with travel under the waters of the Grand Line, the pirates doing their best to forget the battle above they had been unceremoniously evicted from, for their safety. Their submarine wasn't moving any more than their dock, said submarine tied to one of Zunisha's massive legs which dragged them along maybe once or twice an hour. The only two pirates aboard dressed differently had bear ears. One of them, a polar bear mink, was dressed in orange, the color easily popping out of the white of the rest of his crewmates but otherwise the same style and make. This was Beppo, navigator of the Heart Pirates, and he was deep in conversation with Jean Bart, the resident partial giant of the crew. The other was a woman dressed in a yellow coat over her own white jumpsuit, the coat hiding most of the curves the overalls failed to. She was the smallest member of the crew at about 5 feet 1 inch, her short, orange hair framing her wide smile as a pair of barriers the same color twitched in response to sounds both within and without the underwater vessel. She had a short sword belted at her waist but any other weapons she may have carried were hidden within her long coat. Her fingers each boasted a nail sharpened to a claw and between each finger was a kind of webbing, all the better for swimming. This was Polar Tang, the calabuterman of the Heart Pirates. Said Spirit was in conversation with Penguin and Saki, the three reminiscing on the adventures years ago that had brought her to life. And that's when the ceiling broke and Saki fell through. Penguin laughed, slapping a hand down in his friend's shoulder. Both wore identical jumpsuits but different, distinctive hats, specifically a wide, black hat with 2 white spots like an orca for Saki and a yellow-billed baseball cap with his name in black on a white background for Penguin. The latter had a black hood pulled up while the former did not, showing his rust-colored hair. "Thank God I did," Saki laughed. "If I hadn't, you would have gotten married to the penguin princess of the North Pole." She didn't look that bad. She was literal bird with lipstick on her beak. She didn't even have lips. It was a zone. No, it wasn't. They were all penguins. You're just in denial that you almost married a bird. Kukukumahaha. Polar Tang laughed, one hand holding her gut. The incident in question had happened in the North Blue, before she's been sentient and most of the other members had joined the crew. Where were Captain Law and Beppo during that? "Oh, Beppo was in the pews," Penguin answered. He didn't have the heart to object. "And Law was trying to fight the Kraken." "Oh, right." Saki remembered. "I'd forgotten the Penguin clan had that deal with the Kraken to act as their bouncer. Or was it the Kraken's brother? Wouldn't that just make it a second Kraken?" "Yeah, sure. Whatever, you still almost married a bird." "Yeah, good times," Penguin laughed. "I wish Law was here with us, though. He wanted us away from the fighting, remember?" Polar Tang reminded him. "Captain was afraid one or more of us would die in the fighting against Doflamingo and he didn't want to risk it." "Which is silly," Saki rebuffed. "We swore to follow him to the end of the earth. I thought he would have trusted us enough to take us on his greatest mission. We could have helped. And some of us would have died," Tang denied. Captain was clear. It would be war, not assassination. He would make allies and let them take the brunt of the losses, but he didn't want to risk anyone of our crew except himself. "And if that risk ends bad for him, then I have orders," Tang shrugged. "But we don't need to worry. I'm sure Captain Law will." The Klabouterman doubled over, falling to her knees as a horrible shriek wrenched itself from her lips. Every conversation went quiet, all eyes turning on the wood fairy, whose heart was actually metal. Beppo moved first, the mink running to her side, Akaku, the only other female member, hot on his heels. "Tang," Beppo fretted. As he watched, she hacked up a wad of red essence, coughing nearly to point of vomiting as a pain unlike anything she'd ever felt racked her body. It felt like someone was driving an ice pick into her head, severing a part of her spirit itself multiple times. "Tang, what's wrong?" "No," Polar Tang whispered, desperately trying to deny the truth whose evidence was clearly attempting to rip her apart. "No, please, you can't, it didn't happen, it's not true." "Tang, what's wrong?" Akaku asked, the woman with long, bushy brown hair spilling out of a yellow beanie. It was apparent Polar Tang had inherited her body proportions from her, even if Akaku was a head and a half taller. "It's Captain Law," the spirit whispered as the sharpness of the pain slowly subsided, leaving only a dulling ache and a finesse down to the core of her entire being. Her body flickered, barely retaining its corporeal form even as she threatened to lose it any moment. A major part of her had just vanished, ripped away in an instant. Moby must have felt this sensation several times over at the War of the Best 2 years ago, but he had powered through it, been ready for it. For Polar Tang, she'd had neither knowledge nor forewarning. Captain Law, his bonds snapped. She hiccuped, "He's dead." Her last words came out as a whisper, echoing around her silent insides. Polar Tang didn't know where or how or the circumstances that had led to the situation. All she knew was that all of Trafalgar Law's connections to his crew, the very bonds by which Klaboutermans like her were born, had all been severed at once. Losing the captain, the beating heart by which every member of the crew were connected, had very nearly killed Polar Tang or set her back far enough that she would not have been able to form her body. "You're lying," Penguin accused. This is a joke, right? I know you got Hakugan's sick sense of humor, but this isn't funny?" "I wish I was," Tang replied, tears starting to roll down her cheeks. "I don't want it to be true." "We need to go," Saki insisted. Maybe he's faking his death. Maybe he made his heart stop beating, but he's gonna replace it with another one. It wouldn't be the first time." "Not this time." Tang shook her head. She stood on shaking legs, accepting Akaku's offered help. Her voice shook just as badly. I have orders." "No, we can still do something," Penguin insisted. "Law." "The captain is dead," the Klabouterman repeated with more force even as the tears redoubled. Even then she could feel the rest of the bonds from which she'd been given life fraying as the crew threatened to fall apart. She turned her eyes on the most unique of them. "I have orders, for Beppo." "F for me?" the mink questioned. These words came from Captain Law himself. "In the event I die, the crew will go on. You will not seek revenge for me, nor will you pursue anything that would bring you against Doflamingo. If these are my final orders, then I pass my everything to you, my oldest and most trusted friend. Take my crew, my ship, my will, and my name. Our loyalty goes to you now, Captain Trafalgar D. Beppo." It was all too much, the shocks hitting him one after the other. Beppo stood there, surprised, as Polar Tang knelt before him, her hand over the symbol on her suit. John Bart was the second to take a knee, his sworn oath making the submarine itself shake. One by one, every other member of the Heart Pirates fell until each had bowed their head to the mink. Beppo blinked, trying to understand. I'm sorry, he squeaked before passing out. He found Doflamingo on the roof of the pockmarked castle. What little of it remained held up by the remains of the ancient brickwork that had survived his and Luffy's last battle. Doflamingo had moved a stone throne at some time. Perhaps it had been there for years, and was lounging on it. The warlord grinned. You killed Trafi. If anything, Doflamingo's sick smirk widened. You saw my little surprise, did you? Honestly, he was disappointing, but I suppose that's what happens when you cut off a man's arm and leg. He's just never quite the same again. The king bit down a flinch, the gamma knife attack that Law had given him as a parting gift still making it feel like his insides were on fire despite the man's death and Doflamingo's subsequent self-healing, internal strings holding his vitals in place. You killed Trafi. I was hoping for some more astute dialogue, Straw Hat, but it seems that's beyond your purview. I should have known from our last bout. Luffy threw his arm to the side, the blood inside bouncing violently from the force. His skin turned red as second gear activated, the smaller pirate blurring forward with a scream of rage. Doflamingo reacted instantly, a shield of strings forming between the pair. Luffy screamed, his hockey-coated fist smashing through the hasty shield like glass. My, Doflamingo grinned, landing several steps away as Luffy's punch shattered his stone throne. Aren't you angry? I'm going to beat you into the ground, Luffy swore, popping his knuckles. I'm going to make you live in defeat, your dreams shattered beyond fixing. Bold words, Straw Hat, the warlord laughed. Let's see you try. The pair blurred, smashing against each other in bursts of black lightning. Luffy grit his teeth, his foes smiled taunting him. He spun into an unannounced gum-gum whip, Doflamingo bending backward underneath it. 5 colors yarn. Luffy jumped upward, spinning over the razor string that tried to slice him to pieces. He twisted with a snarl. Red Hawk Gatling. Luffy's fists ignited, burning punches falling around the pink-dressed warlord. A single vein bulged on the blonde's forehead as he ducked and weaved through the flurry of blows. Excess yarn whip. A massive, woven length of string shot from Doflamingo's wrist, the man swinging it around toward the airborne pirate. Luffy couldn't move well in the air, only managing to turn enough to cross his arms as his armament once more clashed with the king's. The excess yarn whip smashed Luffy into and through the roof, making him disappear from sight. Doflamingo frowned, walking over to the hole. He could tell the supernova was still alive, but not what he was doing. Giant bazooka. The celestial dragon barely had time for his eyes to widen behind his red-tinted glasses before the roof below him cracked and shattered, exploding upward with the force of Luffy's massive arms. The taller man spun through the air, landing on his feet hard. His one vein was joined by a second. What a ridiculous power you have, Straw Hat. Igniting your fists, making them bigger somehow, these do not make sense. Good, Luffy grunted. That means you can't figure them out, Jet Battle Axe. Doflamingo shaved forward, reappearing before Luffy as the smaller pirate's foot came down on the rooftop far behind. Full blight. Luffy's eyes widened as pain assaulted him, 5-string javelins stabbing into his gut. He gasped and stumbled backward, blood dripping from his wounds. Doflamingo sneered. I grow tired of this. Entertain me better or die already, Straw Hat. Never, Luffy snarled, his shaded eyes glaring at the warlord. He reached up, yanking out the javelins of string. I'm not going to fall to a bastard like you. All at once, Luffy's conqueror's haki bore down on Doflamingo, whose eyes widened by millimeters. His grin redoubled with a third vein, the tyrant's own haki exploding from his form to counter Luffy's. The black lightning of clashing haki materialized around them, radiating from the pair and making the air oppressive to any would-be spectators. The spirit of the conquerors, you've got guts, I'll give you that, the man chuckled. That said, you cannot defeat me with the paltry attacks you have shown. My attacks have nothing to do with chicken. Doflamingo pulled up short, blinking. His haki fizzled. Excuse me. I said my attacks have nothing to do with chicken. One of Doflamingo's eyelids twitched. Dare I ask why you say that? You called my attacks poultry. They aren't chicken, though. The usurper king sighed. I just can't kill you morons fast enough. You can't kill this moron at all. And I'm not a moron. Luffy shaved forward, planting his fist in the roof where Doflamingo had been half a second before. The warlord threw 2 more 5 colors yarn, forcing Luffy onto the defensive. You're nothing, Straw Hat. You're a rat with a half-decent power and luck. No intelligence of your own to speak of. You're so weak that you need your followers to pick up your slack. In fact, you're so stupid that I suspect they are simply using you as a shield, readying to cut you away and use you as a scapegoat the moment the Marines back you into a corner. Don't you dare, Mingo, Luffy hissed. He spun on his heel, dodging 3 bullet yarns that tried to do what the full blight did not. I don't have followers. I have friends, and I trust my friends to be able to do everything I can't. But what I can do is beat the crap out of angry jerks like you. Foolish. Doflamingo whipped his hand upward, another 5 colors yarn slicing through the roof marking a trail toward the smaller pirate. Just die already. Luffy didn't respond verbally, moving enough to dodge the attack that carved away a corner of the building. Jet rifle. Doflamingo turned, interposing his hand. Luffy's spinning fist smashed against the warlord's palm, skin scraping against skin. The Tyrant King's fingers clamped down, trapping the supernova's hand. Luffy's eyes widened. Let's see how much your stretchy skin can take, Doflamingo chuckled, bringing up his other hand. Strings shimmered between his fingertips, the man coating them in hockey to counter Luffy's own a moment before he brought his strings down on Luffy's wrist. Luffy grit his teeth as skin lacerated. The blonde's smile turned to a sneer as he felt tugging on the hand in his grip. You're going no. He looked up just in time to get a fist to the face, the rubber pirate's knuckles shattering his glasses. His fingers let go as the pain registered, physics catching up a moment later. Doflamingo bounced, each one bleeding away a little more momentum. Luffy glared. You're double already tired something like that. I never make the same mistake twice. Foo, Doflamingo chuckled from where he laid on his back. Foo, ah ha 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 ha. You think this is funny? This country is burning down around us, and the government that purports to protect the people is on my side. The evil pirates are fighting to save it. The world is upside down, how can I not laugh? You're sick. The world is starting to burn, Straw Hat, but one of us won't be around to see it. Doflamingo got to his feet, blood dripping down into his smile. Is that the best you can do? Do you not want to avenge Law? Luffy's fist clenched. Hockey swirled around his arms, the smaller pirate deciding he needed to up the ante. Fine. I have to make this quick, then. I'll show you my fourth gear. Fourth gear? Doflamingo echoed. Yeah, in order to beat you, I had to get stronger. You've seen second gear and third gear already, but this is stronger than both of them. He sucked in a breath before blowing it into his arm. The limb expanded as it did in third gear, the air inside making the hockey-covered skin ripple before it moved into the rest of his body. He started to float slightly, kicking his sandals off, as his chest and torso expanded, his arms now the same width and color of cannons. His hockey swirled over both arms, creating a mirrored pattern on his chest as it flowed up and over his shouldered sheen over the dark coloring. A band of steam trailed under his arms and behind his head. Muscle balloon. Fourth gear, bounce man. He bounced with a buoyant, you're joking, Doflamingo accused, a hand coming to his face. He chuckled. You're joking. This is a joke, right? Look at you. You made your body all big by inflating yourself as if some air is supposed to help you. I spared you and marked you during the War of the Best 2 years ago to make you train and grow stronger to entertain me. And this is what you bring? I was expecting some great stratagem and secret technique. This is it? This is it? You can't be serious? This is my stratagem and I am serious. You can't even stand, you keep bouncing like some child's ball. How are you supposed to kick my ass as that state? Luffy cocked his fist back, his hand slowly seeming to disappear into the forearm. You won't be able to do anything. Gum gum Kong. Luffy shot forward, far too fast for Doflamingo to react to in his current state. All he could do was cross his arms, coating them in several layers of hockey, gun. The blow launched Doflamingo through the railing of the castle roof at the speed of a bullet, the disgraced celestial dragon vanishing into the city below. Luffy tracked his progress by the trail of dust as the king's body smashed through multiple buildings before finally stopping at the base of one, the whole thing toppling over. Despite the hit, Luffy knew the taller man would not go down that easily. He bounced twice before launching himself over the divide, following Doflamingo's trail. The king had lost his smirk, his teeth grinding as he watched the supernova approach. He flexed his hand, calling forth a vast number of strings that rubbed against each other quickly, generating enough friction to glow, overheat. He slashed, Luffy vanishing from the path the instant it started. The next moment, both of Luffy's feet we planted in the side of Doflamingo's face, his body dragged along by the neck as he was blasted into and through another building. Rhino Schneider. The trail of dust ended abruptly, the pink outline of Doflamingo using his strings to pull himself into the air, away from more buildings. You won't get away from me, Luffy swore, taking to the air with his own version of moonwalk. Get back here, Mingo. The pair rose into the sky. Ace. The toddler perked up at the sound of his mother's voice. The boy turning from Chopper's lesson on the reconnection of cleanly severed arms without painkillers, he jumped to his feet. Mommy, I'm here, Ace ran, leaving the lesson behind. The reindeer doctor sighed with a shake of his head and resumed stitching the gladiator's arm back on. Oh, Ace, Nami slid off Billy's saddle, kneeling to scoop her son into her arms. Oh, my boy, I was so worried about you. I had a lot of fun, Mommy, the Colosso fights were great. Then Daddy got super mad and knocked people out. Then these girls were mean to Mary and we did a lot of running. Then we saw the new Lucy who is super Uncle Sabo and we saw a lot of good people fighting bad people. Then we found a door with secret-y things inside, but Mary got hurt and I had to save her, so I ate one of the super duper fruits and went FWOOSH. It was gross, Then Uncle Sanji and Kaku showed up and we got out and Super Uncle Sabo ate the other one and everything went crack. Kablooey, and now we're here. You ate a devil fruit? Nami gasped. Yeah, look, Ace raised his hands, his palms and fingers turning to fire. Cool, but not as cool as Super Uncle Sabo. He makes the air go crack, ba-boom, bam, and not cool cuz fire's hot, not cool. Amazing, Robin grinned, reaching over to ruffle little Ace's dark hair under his too big hat. I was unsure if Sabo would eat a devil fruit if given the chance. Auntie Robin Sensei, do you know Super Uncle Sabo? I do. Quite well, actually. I've spent more time around him than with the crew. After all, I did sojourn with the Revolutionary Army during our absence. Sojourn? What's that? He means to spend a long but limited time somewhere. Is that you, Robin? A blur of soft pink and magenta practically flew into the archaeologist, doing its best to tackle her in a hug. Robin grew several legs and arms to stabilize herself against the assault, letting Koala squeeze her like an old friend. Yee, I'm so happy to see you. Look what the Sea King dragged in. Robin, Nami, Billy, Brooke, Viola, and Mancherry on the other princess's shoulder turned to the trio from which the voice had come, Sabo, Hack, and William D. Chapston approaching. It was the latter of whom that spoke. It hasn't even been 6 months. Did you miss us that much? What he means is that we're happy to see you, Sabo supplied, offering a smile. He turned to Nami as Koala let go of Robin. So, you're the one that managed to tame my wild baby brother? Robin's told us a lot about you and the others. Baby brother, Nami echoed. Super Uncle Sabo, Ace grinned. Sup, Sabo? Wait, I thought Luffy told me you died when you were kids. The tales of my death were greatly exaggerated, Sabo chuckled. I tried to go out to sea to escape my family and a visiting celestial dragon blew me up. I survived, barely, but didn't remember anything about who I was or where I was from. Commander Dragon found me and trained me. I didn't remember anything until after the news of the War of the Best 2 years ago. His smile turned strained. I'm sorry, Nami offered. We met Ace briefly in Alabasta. He seemed like a good guy. There was nothing good about us, Sabo chuckled. We were a pair of hellions and Luffy only made us more chaotic when we met him. We'd steal food and jewelry and valuables, all with the goal of buying a ship to sail away. We didn't know anything about the world, we just knew it was supposed to be the three of us against it. Even now, pirates and revolutionaries, we're raising hell like there's no tomorrow. Anything to make Garp pull his hair out, right? Nami grinned. Sabo laughed in agreement. He stepped forward, taking his top hat off to bump it against the orange hat resting on little Ace's head. Welcome to the family. Both of you. I'll have you know, Dragon's real proud. 57 million at 1.5? We actually heard him laugh. Who's Dragon? Ace questioned. Is it like the Dragon Daddy and the others ate on that hot cold island? No, kid, Sabo laughed. Dragon is your dad's dad. Like how Old Man Garp is Daddy's dad's dad, Sabo nodded with a smirk. Right. Old Man Garp is your Grandpa Dragon's dad. Whoa. Family's super duper confusing. Ace nodded to himself. Nami was just glad he didn't call it a mystery and leave it there. Super Uncle Sabo, these are Mommy and Auntie Robin Sensei and Billy and Grandpa Brooke. We already knew Robin. I'll introduce us, Koala said, interrupting Sabo. I'm Koala, the better, smarter, and more beautiful half of this lug. She poked the blonde in the cheek. Behind us are Hack the Fishman and William D. Chapston, an old pirate. I'm not old, William rebuffed. I hate old men, I'll never get old. Yo-ho, Brooke chuckled. You cannot be older than me. William stared at Brooke for a long moment. I am conflicted. You're old, so I want to stab you, but you're also already dead. Pardon me, miss, Brooke continued, addressing Koala. Would you be so kind as to show me your panties? Like hell. Both Koala and Sabo roared. Fishman karate and a quaking punch tried to shatter the musician's bones, blasting the undead pirate backward with a scream. William drew his sword. Never mind. Not conflicted anymore. So, Ace tells me you and him both ate devil fruits, Nami prompted, focused on Sabo. She didn't need their allies re-killing her oldest crewmate because of his perverted tendencies. We did. Sabo raised his hand, moving as if to snap his fingers. His hand trembled slightly, the air over his middle finger and thumb cracking before the entire thing ruptured with a burst of force that ruffled everybody's clothing. Little Ace snagged, so I got the next best thing. We'll put it to good use. I've rolled that fruit with my own a few times, William spoke up, referencing the gambling nature of his roulette devil fruit. I'm sure we can find some things to break with the power of Whitebeard. 3 ladies walk in after Sanji leaves, Usopp commented as he and Frankie finally joined the little group. Chopper went to see to Brooke. He'd be so mad. 4 ladies, Mancherry piped up, harumphing with a pout. You must be one of the super dwarves we've heard about, Frankie said, offering Mancherry a tiny robotic hand to shake that came out of his small hand that came out of his larger hand. I'm Mancherry, and I'm Viola, The other princess put in. Are King Riku and Rebecca here? Those who had fought in the battle in the Colosseum exchanged glances. No, they aren't, Sabo said. They were escorted away with Diamante hot on their heels. The samurai went with them, Usopp explained. I'm sure they're fine. Nami and Robin shared a worried look. Oh no, what happened? Well, Koby was with us, Nami said. He felt some sort of disturbance and went to check it out. You don't think? I don't know what to think, but I'm sure we aren't going to like it. You didn't go with him? Frankie questioned. That wasn't a super choice. It shouldn't have been a big deal, Nami replied. I was just so worried about Ace. I'm fine, Mommy. The boy grinned. Gee, he did say he required no assistance, Robin added. What's the state of Doflamingo's forces? Koala asked, still eyeing the bonehead who asked inappropriate questions to nearly every woman he met. It seems most of them are dead, Robin replied. She closed her eyes and crossed her arms, sending out a veritable wave of blooming and dissipating eyes that scanned a majority of the island. Yes, a majority of the Doflamingo officers have met their demises, the horrid Trable included. Most now cool in coagulating puddles of their own external blood. What about the little girl that could make people into toys? Usopp asked. I did not see her. The harpy, either. It seems they are in hiding or actively fighting. Ah, we should have visitors soon. What do you, Princess Mancheri? A cacophony of voices cried. A wave of dwarves flowing through one of the archways. The little blonde on Viola's shoulder perked up. Leo in Terabang. The dwarves came to a stop as Viola lifted their princess gently, setting her on the ground. Mancheri kicked off her tiny heels and ran to them, throwing her arms around the one in the lead. Leo. I'm sorry we were late, princess. By the time we rallied the army and rescued our brethren in the Smile Factory, it seems you were already rescued. Yes, Princess Riku Viola rescued me. She knew where they were holding me at the castle. Princess, it's not all good news. Leo looked down and away. We lost about half our forces to a surprise attack from one of the Doflamingo officers. He also killed Thunder Soldier and King Riku in that battle. What in Terabang? Viola demanded above them. No, that can't. You must be mistaken, my father would not fall so easily, and with Kairos at his side. I am sorry. The man called Diamante also cut off one of Princess Rebecca's arms, but she is still alive. Thunder Soldier gave his life that Princess Rebecca could slay the man. Tears streamed down Viola's face, the woman falling to her knees. Koala was at her side in an instant, holding her gently. Dad, Kairos. There was nothing we could do, Leo reported. We were first attacked by a marine and would not have made it out except for the intervention of the lizard. Lizard? Nami echoed. He must mean Uncle Koby, Ace deduced as only toddlers could. Uncle Koby's a big lizard sometimes. Billy nodded in agreement. I remember he called himself Koby, yes, Leo agreed. He fought the man of candy who trapped the rest of our forces. I held back the marines that wished to interfere but could do nothing for Thunder Soldier, King Riku, or the Tontata lost. We rushed here after learning Princess Mancheri had been rescued already. You said Rebecca lost an arm? Viola questioned. Yes, but Lizard had a devil fruit with him he said could heal such wounds in time. I see, Robin hummed. It was a good idea to give Koby that fruit for safekeeping, Nami. That devil fruit could heal? The navigator asked. Not quickly, but Koby and Grace asked me for help researching axolotls since that was the zone fruit in question. They seem to be native to the kingdom of the dead, Shishano. They can regrow lost limbs and, like fishmen, possess both gills and lungs. Many in the country consider them sacred, claiming them to be pieces of their god Shalut, god of fire, lightning, death, and monsters. What cold comfort, Viola muttered, her tears falling to the broken earth. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you, Rebecca. Mancheri smacked herself on the cheeks, turning to Viola. For centuries, the Tontata and the Riku family had an agreement. By driving your father out 10 years ago, Doflamingo severed that alliance. Princess Viola, with King Riku's death, the crown falls to you. Will you resume our agreement? Mancheri knelt first, Leo following her lead. Within seconds, every dwarf was kneeling before the crying woman. I will, Viola hiccuped. I swear I will. Koby knew where we were going, so he should meet us here, Nami announced, trying to move the conversation away from such morbid topics until such time as Ace was not listening. Death might be part of the pirate's life and wars like the one they found themselves in the middle of, but that did not mean he needed his innocence spoiled so soon. Where's Sanji? Not really sure, Usopp answered. He ran off right after the battle. Amy, Jin, Mary, and Kaku haven't come back, either. Mary, Jin, Kaku, and Grace had to sail off. They were stuck on Sunny when the strings came down and a battleship started firing on them. We'll meet them when we're done here. Maybe Sanji and Amy are super fighting marines? Frankie suggested. They're like cockroaches, so it's possible. And none of us have hockey, so we can't just go looking for them the easy way, Usopp lamented. I have hockey, but I don't really know what they feel like, Sabo commented. Why can't Auntie Robin-sensei look? Ace asked. She just did, didn't she? My eyes avoided the areas with active fighting, Ace-chan, Robin replied, resting a hand on Ace's head. If something were to destroy one of them, I would lose that eye for real. Then your auntie wouldn't be pretty anymore. You'd still be pretty, and you'd match Uncle Mosshead. Robin grinned. Foo, when you put it that way. Robin, you're not risking your eyes for something so stupid, Nami chastised. She sighed. Honestly, you're supposed to be one of the adults. Foo, Robin chuckled. We just need to super lock them in a room together, Frankie muttered. You say that like Zoro wouldn't find his way out by accident and we'd find him swimming in the fish tank or something, Usopp said. Yeah, that's fair. A grunt interrupted their conversation, a marine beat in black and blue rolling to a stop at their feet. The group followed his trajectory with their eyes to find Coby marching in flanked by Kinemon, Kanjuro, and Aizu, his face stormy. It softened slightly when he saw his crewmates, but he still stomped his way down the stairs toward them. Chopper and Brook took that as a chance to join the huddle as well. Lizard, Leo called. He doesn't look like a lizard to me, Mancherry commented. Someone doesn't look happy, William muttered. Not looking happy is a goddamned understatement, the Rosset growled. I'm so foo, he trailed off, noticing Ace amongst the crowd, fudging peeved off. What's got you so mad, Uncle Coby? Ace asked. Well, I failed. Then I met some high-ranked Marines who haven't been doing jack just because they don't want to risk getting court-martialed by directly disobeying what they know are immoral orders, so they're dirty work, not caring about the casualties. He sucked in a deep, shuddering breath. Viola, I'm sorry. We've already heard the news, the princess replied, her voice strained. Rebecca, is Rebecca okay? Hopefully in time, Coby nodded, offering the axolotl in his palm with two hands. She's been unconscious or asleep since Kairos died in her arms. Even my shouting at that vice admiral didn't wake her up. A vice admiral? Nami gasped. Viola took Rebecca into her hands gently, staring down at the new zone. Her shoulders drooped slightly at the missing appendage. I think the devil fruit I gave her will regrow her arm since it managed to stem the bleeding pretty quickly, but she'd lost it before I gave her the fruit, so it might not. I think the odds are in favor, though. Devil fruits seem to be pretty mental. If she thinks she's supposed to have two arms, she'll probably grow it back. You did the best you could, Viola sniffed. Leo said there was a marine there preventing you from doing more. Coby snarled. Yeah. Helmeppo. Who? Every other straw hat in the area questioned. Really, the only one who might recognize the name was Zoro, and Coby even doubted that he'd remember Morgan despite the month of time Zoro spent tied up, much less his crybaby son. He was the son of the first Marine Luffy and Zoro-sensei beat up together, Coby summarized. Helmeppo got pressed into service after his dad was court-martialed or something and got a hold of Gaspard's candy fruit. He and I fought the day I joined the crew, back in Marineford, and again here. He blames me for his current life. So, like, an arch-nemesis. Usopp suggested. Cool, Ace grinned. Uncle Coby's got an archie-nemesis. Coby sighed, brushing off the comment and ignoring the sniper. Listen, we need to move deeper into the city soon. The birdcage is almost on us. It'll slice the Colosseum and everyone in it to shreds if we linger too long. I don't want to get sliced to shreds, Chopper squeaked. How long are we talking, Dino bro? Frankie questioned. Maybe 10 minutes? A massive boom echoed across the island, turning the group's attention upward. Two shapes shot across the sky, one pink and the other much darker in color. The pair of shapes smacked against each other and separated again and again, each impact sending out shockwaves that were almost visible to the observers below. What is that? Chopper gasped. I think that's Captain Luffy. He must be fighting Doflamingo, Sabo reasoned. We're never going to be able to get up there in time to help, much less manage anything at long range with how quickly they're moving. We'd be just as likely to hit Luffy than Doflamingo. Perhaps there's something we can do, Brook thought aloud. Could he possibly slow the birdcage if not stop it completely? I would appreciate anything at this point, Viola said. Even if it's a waste of energy, the attempt is meaning enough. I'll not stand by and watch the country my father loved, my country, cut to ribbons by the temper tantrum of an overstuffed flamenco. Alright, then, Sabo nodded with a clap. I'll gather the troops. Let's see what we can do. This damn moron, Doflamingo hissed to himself, barely avoiding another Kong gun that pressurized the air enough to blow him backward. The pirate's ridiculous power didn't make any sense, which made fighting it even more difficult since it seemed to break all the conventional devil fruit rules. And he couldn't even come up with appropriately biting insults because any befitting a man of his caliber would undoubtedly pass over Straw Hat's head with ne'er a glimmer of understanding. Never before had he been accused of nakedness for using the word uncouth. Straw Hat's stupidity was a mental weapon all its own. Could proximity to such lower one's intelligence? Doflamingo truly wanted to finish their fight before enough time passed to test the theory. He couldn't even call Straw Hat a plebeian with his ancestry, considering his direct ancestors are a famous vice admiral and the most wanted man in the world. Plebeian was just another high society word the fool didn't know. He'd likely mishear it as pastry and say something about cakes. An idle thought in the part of his brain not occupied with the fight wondered if somewhere, somehow, Straw Hat had defeated an enemy by literally not thinking. In the vast stupidity of the world where individuals like Straw Hat could exist, get married, and even have children, Doflamingo considered it possible. Gum Gum Culverin. Doflamingo threw his hand to the side, grabbing a part of his birdcage with a string that pulled him away from the incoming straight punch. The stretchy, hockey-coated arm whizzed past, stirring the air. It seems you can't. The king began only for the fist to suddenly bounce off the air toward him, for lack of a better word. Doflamingo's eyes widened, the blonde yanking on his strings to avoid the redirected attack only for the same thing to happen. The man snarled, forced into a game of cat and mouse against the impossible punch. How are you doing that, spider web? The punch finally slammed into a shield of strings, breaking the construct but ending the attack. I call the technique Python, Straw Hat boasted. With my hockey, I can redirect my punches any way that I need to. That is not how hockey works, you fool, Doflamingo hissed. Then you tell me how it works, the young father replied. I do it, so I'll tell you how I do it, and I use hockey, so there. Doflamingo needed to think of something quickly or this would be the fight. Straw Hat wins using his stupidity as a weapon, because clearly physics and the world itself had given up trying to tell the moron no. Gum Gum, 5 colors yarn, double culverin. The younger man flipped over the king's attack, launching both his fists at his opponent. Rather than wait to miss, they started bouncing off the air in seemingly random directions heading generally toward the warlord. Doflamingo grit his teeth in a snarl, backpedaling with each attempted punch. His free hand tried to attack with his own devil fruit, but his 5 colors yarn and full blight only bounced off the stretchy arm no matter how much hockey be put into them, and his bullet yarn only made the fists redirect before returning. Doflamingo charged forward, swinging on his strings or running along equally invisible thread toward the buffed up pirate. Luffy's eyes widened slightly as the king ducked under his redirected culverin. Athlete, Doflamingo yelled, his strings sharpened and hockey-covered shoe impacting Luffy's side. Rather than stabbing and slicing as he'd expected, the hockey-coated flesh distended inward, maintaining that shape for all of 2 seconds before returning to its puffed-up state. Throwing the taller man's leg away, he spun through the air, righting himself quickly. How in Terabang, he demanded. Armored yet still rubbery, surprise, Mingo, Luffy shouted, tilting himself down. Before the taller man could fully recover himself, the younger appeared above him, feet slamming down into his gut. Rhino Schneider. The taste of copper filled Doflamingo's mouth as the force rocketed him down into the city. Roads shattering and buildings crumbling. Citizens screamed and ran from the destruction as the area was wrecked. The warlord stared upward as dust settled on him in his crater. Foo, he chuckled. Foo, ah ha 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 ha. His laughing must have tipped off the younger pirate that he was not yet defeated, for Luffy used his strange propulsion to charge downward, an arm cocked back for a finishing blow. Gum Gum, Kong Gun. Doflamingo vanished an instant before the blow struck, shattering the ground. Cracks raced outward through the cobblestone from the impact site. His eyes widened slowly. Coping saw. Rather than his body, it was Straw Hat's head that the king targeted, driving the teen's face into the broken road. Drops of red splattered on the stonework as Luffy gasped, his head rebounding. Athlete. Luffy bounced from the impact, smashing into rubble to the side. He reacted quickly, pivoting on a hand to cartwheel back onto his feet, where he resumed his annoying bouncing. A hand rose, touching the new lines carved into the side of his face, most prominent on his left cheek. He was lucky he didn't lose the eye. TCH, Doflamingo muttered to himself. I should have gone for the neck. Yeah, you should have, Luffy agreed. He bounced into a backflip, kicking off of a building that he destroyed in the process. The king spun, knocking Luffy off course with a spinning kick of his own, but Luffy's arms were long enough to grab the blonde around the waist, dragging him along. The pair rolled through the cracked street, biting and punching as if they were in a schoolyard brawl rather than a fight for the fate of the country. Doflamingo came out worse, taking another kick to his gut that sent him skidding away. Why do you persist? He demanded, getting up slowly. You have no stake in this island. Your ally, your reason to be here, is dead. Are you fighting only because of the birdcage? I'm fighting for a lot more than that, Luffy replied. My family is here, most of my crew is here, and I've made friends here. More than that, Trafi died to see you fall. I'm gonna make sure it happens. How annoying. I can't tell whether you're trying to be selfless or just bullheaded. I'm not a. I know you're not a bullzone, moron. Doflamingo sucked in a breath, trying to calm himself down after his outburst. This is all getting ridiculous. It's time I ended this. He knelt, pressing a hand into the ground. The road began losing its color, turning white in an expanding circle from the warlord's hand. Luffy jumped as this circle reached him. The color change moving on past to take over rubble and buildings indiscriminately. Soon enough, the entirety of their surroundings were the same off-white. Ever white, the king named the technique as the affected surroundings started to unweave, showing that Doflamingo had, somehow, turned them into countless strings. Behold, Straw Hat. This is the power of an awakened devil fruit. Now die, having witnessed the pinnacle of the world's power. We're not playing with cards, Mingo, that's pinnacle, idiot. A gesture of his hand was all it took for the sea of string to move at Doflamingo's will, surging upward toward the rival captain. Luffy took to the air, tentacles of string trying to snatch him or knock him out of the air in a dangerous game of cat and mouse. Run, fly, as fast as you can. Every minute you wait is another dozen people dead to the birdcage. Dellinger, Giola, how many more whom we know will be sliced apart? I don't know who those two were, their deaths are on your hands. Do you think a god like me cares about the deaths of animals? I called them family, but they were more like pets than anything. I will at least feel a little bad for them once I've finished destroying the country. Break white. Two of the massive string tentacles wrapped around each other before snapping shut on either side of Luffy. He barely got out a gasp before everything went dark. Doflamingo chuckled, turning away. Well, that was fun. I should, me go ooped, glancing backward as the veins on his forehead became more pronounced. His fingers twitched as he watched his string tentacles slowly separate, straining against the force exerted by the team between them. The king raised his hand palm up and slowly closed his fingers, calling on more of the surroundings to rise at his command. Strings surged upward, mimicking the appearance of his hand as 4 fingers and a thumb curved inward to further crush the annoying cockroach. Palm white, he grunted as the string fingers closed, finally. Leo Bazooka. Again, Doflamingo tasted blood, but taste was the least concerning of his 5 senses in that moment as his back screamed in pain. He shot forward, carried on a jet of propulsed air. His strings moved at his mental command, forming a hill-sized pile to catch him. It'll take more than that to get rid of me, Luffy swore from behind where Doflamingo had been standing. You insolent little twerp, why won't you just roll over and die like you're supposed to? Because I refuse to give up, gum. He started closing the distance, his fast cocking back into his expanded arm as he did. Billow white. Numerous tentacles surged upward, each one trying to entangle Straw Hat before he could reach his destination. He ducked and weaved through the hostile battlefield, Doflamingo adding additional dangers with several bullet yarns. Those that landed did not penetrate Luffy's haki, but the teen still felt them. Kong Ji-yu, the billow white caught Luffy the moment he turned his attention to hitting Doflamingo, first wrapping a tendril around his prepped arm. It yanked against the teen's momentum, his legs swinging forward as his shoulders were wrenched the opposite direction. That moment was all it took before more tendrils swarmed over the pirate, snagging his wrists, shoulders, and ankles to keep him in place. Slowly, his 4th gear faded, as if not being able to move somehow undid the transformation, leaving the pirate out of breath. Mingo, let me go. A commoner like you has no right to give a king orders, the blonde replied, stepping up to the other pirate as the tendrils lifted him to eye level. Much less can you command a celestial dragon such as myself. Luffy spit, the oral liquid splashing on Doflamingo's cheek. He almost flinched in disgust, his rage turning palpable in the burst of conquerors that billowed forth from him. Luffy remained undaunted. You damned brat, the taller man yelled, punching the shorter in the face with a hockey-coated fist. Luffy's head snapped to the side, the armament covering making the blunt attack effective. Doflamingo did not stop there, beating the younger man over and over again. You're a fool and a weakling. Your luck ran out the moment you decided to challenge me. The moment you allied yourself with Law, and yet, because of you and your band of impudent upstarts, my minions are all dead or scattered. My kingship is at an end. He paused, Luffy's blood dripping from his knuckles. The young father looked bad, his face and torso bruised and lacerated from Doflamingo's string powers enhancing his punches with a cutting element. Most men would have died or given up by now. I'm not most men, Luffy replied with a snarl, ignoring the pain in his face and torso. I'm the man who's going to be king of the pirates. Right, we'll see about that when I rip your heart out. Doflamingo spread his bloodied hands, sharpened tendrils rising behind him. With only a thought, their tips were covered in the dark sheen of armament haki. Let's see how much longer you can hold out before you beg for death. 1,000 arrows. Flap thread. They came down one at a time. Luffy closed his eyes and grit his teeth, focusing his haki on defense. Had his 4th gear timed out naturally, he would have been unable to use haki for 10 minutes, but where his lack of movement deactivated 4th gear, his willpower was not drained. He did not say this, of course, leaving Doflamingo ignorant that his capture of Luffy was the only reason the team could fend off the onslaught. As it was, each armored tip smashed against Luffy's front, searching for any weak or undefended point for purchase in his rubbery skin. Foo. The tyrant king laughed. Foo ha 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 ha. Give up, Straw Hat, or don't. That will certainly make torturing you more fun than it was torturing your crewmates or law. Ahahaha. Something crackled, the sound emanating through the air as feedback compounded on itself. The noise cut out at the point it became painful, the king gritting his teeth as he recognized the source. People of Dressrosa, a female voice said, her words carried across the island nation on the countrywide system. Believe me or not, but my name is Princess Riku Viola, the only surviving daughter of Riku Doldo III. Today, with that bastard Doflamingo's reign at an end, I can finally tell the truth of the monster who usurped the throne. As the smartest individuals present, Robin and Sabo had to facilitate the clearing of the Colosseum as the birdcage drew closer. Every still-breathing body, pirates, marines, and civilians alike, needed to be carried out and deeper into the city. This task was much easier said than done, but with liberal use of Bartolomeo's barriers as slides and various methods of getting those strong enough to take a few wallops on the way down to the top of said barrier slide, the whole ordeal went off with some time to spare. Everyone else in more precarious positions health-wise were carried out manually as the new Whitebeards led the way to secure a large enough area they could defend further inland. That only left those willing to face down the birdcage now standing outside the Colosseum. The bodies of the defeated Marines, both alive and otherwise, moved away well before Ace was allowed out. I can't believe I get to meet you, Mr. Koby Senpai-sama. It's such an honor, Bartolomeo blubbered, tears rolling down his cheeks as he shook Koby's hand with both of his and the entirety of his body weight. You're just as impressive in person. Can I see your transformation? Can I have your autograph? Can I get you anything? Koby blinked, the odd fanaticism displacing his anger for the moment. Sure, I don't need anything, except maybe a pen? I've got one for you right here, Mr. Koby Senpai-sama. Bartolomeo pulled out a stack of wanted posters and a pen, flipping through the stack until he came to a certain few, all of them being Koby's posters over the years. There were 4, the one from after Alabasta, after Eni's lobby, after the Marineford War, and finally the latest one from their actions on Punk Hazard, reminding Koby that his head was now worth 129 million, a higher sum than Luffy's bounty after he defeated Crocodile. He took the pen, remembering when he asked Garp for his own signature at Water 7. I mean, I'll sign them, but I don't think we'll leave this island without new bounties anyway. Then could you sign that one, too? Sure, Mr. Koby, could I see your transformation? When I'm done signing, Koby glanced at his nearby crewmates, each of which had received the same request or were already preparing for it. Ace gave him a thumbs up, showing off the ink that had been used to put a thumbprint on his own poster for the green-haired fanboy. Nami, still holding her son, rolled her eyes. Air cracked, ruffling clothing as Sabo used his new powers to stop Harridan's punch cold, but few of the pirates reacted. It was a fight that had been at a standstill for the last several minutes. Give me the brat, Harridan demanded. The new giant warrior pirates.
I'm sorry, the what in Terabang? Usopp questioned, abandoning his talk with Chopper and Brook to run that direction. He shot a bamboo javelin into the road, riding its highest point up closer to the face of the giant. Did you say the new giant warrior pirates?
Of course, Harridan replied. We shall set to sea to revive the legends of generations past, reminding the world government that we as a race are not to be taken lightly. By any chance mean Dory and Bragi? Harridan stopped, turning his full attention on the sniper. How do you know those names? We met the masters on Little Garden, Usopp replied, enthusiastic. They were amazing, fighting their duel for 100 years despite long since forgetting why. It was a show of manliest pride that could never be outshone. That's why I call them my masters. They are on the island of Little Garden. The giant knelt, getting closer to the long-nosed sniper. The other members of the giant warrior pirates would tell us tales of their adventures but refused to say where their captains were. Many claimed to have forgotten. One goal of the new giant warrior pirates was to find and return the old captains for our seniors. Where is this island? It's at the start of the Grand Line, the sniper reported with a grin. From Reverse Mountain, you take the path to Whiskey Peak. The log pose should reset overnight, taking you straight to Little Garden. The masters said they had an eternal pose to Elbaf there. What joyous news! Harridan laughed, his mirth loud and clear despite the burns still running up his left arm and across the side of his face from his first attempt to abduct Ace. We'll be able to return the captains within months. Now then, if you could stop trying to abduct my nephew, Sabo prompted. Yes, the giant chuckled. I suppose a great service has been rendered to us by that crew. I would be dishonorable to move against them now. He leaned against a building, cracking its walls and shattering its windows as he slid down into a sitting position. What is your name, that I may tell the captains who told us their location? I'm the Sniper King Usopp of the Straw Hat Pirates. Usopp answered with the widest grin he could muster, jabbing a thumb at himself from atop his bamboo. Leader of 1,000 men, slayer of sea kings, angels, zombies, pirates, and marines alike. A brave warrior of the sea who has danced with wolves in the sky and royalty below the waves. The man who shot a Marine secret agent at over 1,000,000 paces to rescue a crewmate from his clutches. And it was my genius that rescued Master Bragi from certain, waxy doom. Well, part of that was true. Nami laughed to herself as Usopp and Haruden started an animated discussion. The latter telling the former the sorts of stories that were told in Elbaf of the adventures of the giant warrior pirates and the crewmates he'd found for his new crew. Of course, when you jumble it all together, it just sounds silly. Uncle Usopp's a silly Billy, Ace agreed. Wah, Billy protested at their side. You're not silly, Billy, Ace replied quickly. You're cool, unlike Uncle Usopp's lying lies. I knew a giant once, Robin commented, standing up from where she'd been confirming the safety and security of the dragon egg still in a carrier strapped to Billy. I knew him for only a short time, but he had a most profound impact on my life. I do wish he could see how true his words turned out to be. What did he say, Auntie Robin Sensei? The archaeologist chuckled to herself, her voice taking on an accent far different from her usual manner of speaking. His name was Saul, and he told me this. You may be lonely at first, but one day you'll find true friends. The sea's a vast place, so I guarantee someday you'll find friends who won't ever leave you. No matter who you are, ain't no one born into this world to be alone. Robin smiled at the memory, tearing up a little. He gave his life to save me in my darkest hour, when I'd lost everything else. The only time anyone did anything similar, it was when your father saved my life when all I wanted was to disappear. Whoa, Ace grinned. Daddy's so cool to be like a giant like that. Indeed he is, Robin grinned, ruffling the boy's hair. Your father and Saul are two of the people I respect most in this world. Bad news, Coby called, directing all attention to him. The birdcage is here. The zone pointed as the buildings closest to the sea were sliced to ribbons, the razor strings that made up Doflamingo's horrible trap carving lines in the earth as they drew closer inch by inch. Coby drew his swords, growing into his armor mode, and ignoring Bartolomeo's excited, "Squeee," as a hockey miasma formed to slowly cling to the blades. The other pirates and revolutionaries lined up beside him. Will this actually make a difference? Chopper questioned. We have to try, Viola responded. Perhaps it will do nothing, but I cannot stand idly by as my home is ripped asunder. Get ready, Sabo ordered, prepping his new devil fruit powers. Keep your eyes to your backs, don't let the cage pin you against a building. Haruden was the first to make contact, the strings cutting into the palms of his hands. Thankfully, they did not cut all the way through, but the force started pushing the giant back, his massive feet carving deep trenches into the ground. Coby was next, Hishokusha and Imono grinding against the shrinking birdcage. He, too, was pushed back. We don't have time to hold back, do we? Chopper muttered to himself, pulling out one of his rumble balls. I guess I have to give it my all, too. Rumble, Ace watched, amazed, as Chopper grew large enough to rival Haruden in size, the giant's own eyes boggling at the display. Chopper let out a long, ringing bray before slamming his hands into the strings. Each fighter added their own strength. Brook, Nami, Usopp, Frankie, Billy, Kinnaman, Kanjuro, Sabo, Koala, Hack, William, Viola, Sai and Buchinjao, Baby 5, Bartolomeo, Elizabello, Idio, Blue Gilly, Abdullah and Jeet, Kelly and Bobby Funk, Cavendish, Rumbus, and all the Tontata added their force trying to push back the wall of destruction, yet it continued to move anyway. Push, Bartolomeo ordered, pressing his shoulder against the wide barrier most of the pirates who did not have haki were using to fight the birdcage. For the love of Mr. Luffy-sama senpai, push. The hell do you think we're doing? Sai shot back, Baby 5 at his side with her hands turned into daggers. It's clearly not enough, Jeet muttered, but I'm not letting myself just roll over for Doflamingo. Ace, stay behind me, Nami ordered from the end of the barrier. The boy didn't fully understand what the birdcage was, but he was smart enough to understand the visuals of the destruction it left and that his family, friends, and allies were trying to stop it. He looked down at his hands and up at the strings as they reached the edge of the Colosseum, beginning to shear it apart. Fire sparked in his palms, not the warm crackling fire like Uncle Pervy Cook would cook with but a raging inferno. He closed his eyes and felt the heat coming out of him, and grabbed it. Learning with his family had exposed him to a lot of kinds of fire and heat for various tasks. Cooking of course, but Uncle Usopp taught him about flammables like alcohol. Chopper taught him about cauterization. Uncle Stupid Moss and Coby taught him about sparks and friction. Mommy had taught him about melting in hot air while Auntie Robin Sensei and Auntie Grace taught about fire science theory. The one from whom he'd learned the most about fire, however, was Uncle Frankie. He used a lot of fire in his workshop from welding to smelting and quenching. Uncle Frankie was around fire all the time. It was these lessons that Ace tried to remember as he took mental hold of the fire in his hands. The inferno shrunk, slowly changing color from yellow to blue as he curled his fingers, forcing the fire through smaller and smaller holes. Fire Dragon's blowtorch. He slashed at the strings to no avail, His brow already started to sweat as he pushed his control of his still new powers. When slashing didn't work, he tried holding his makeshift human blowtorch against one of the strings. "Why's it not burning?" he demanded, the string in question only getting closer. Ace. His mother's warning was a moment too late as the birdcage pushed inward against his hand, cutting into his skin. The boy jumped back with starting to bleed. He didn't understand. The others said he was made of fire now, so why was he bleeding from something like a paper cut? Ace. Shush, come here. Nami scooped the boy into her arms, holding him close as steaming tears leaded from his eyes. "Mommy, it hurts." It appears this technique is infused with Doflamingo's haki, Robin deduced. A plethora of arms pressed against Bartolomeo's barrier to try to stop the birdcage with everyone else. She kept having to disperse and rebloom them before the birdcage could reach their origins. I suspect he wanted none to escape, logia powers included. "We won't let him beat us," Sabo muttered. The Colosseum now sheared halfway through. He might have haki in these strings, but he's fighting Luffy right now. We should be able to overpower this with enough of us. "And how do you propose we do that, huh?" Kelly Funk questioned. "In case you didn't know, wise guy, most of us here don't have haki." "No," Sabo agreed, "but we have many who do and a number of devil fruits at our disposal." He pulled back and moved to a section with no one around, the black sheen of armament covering his hands. Quaking Dragon, Spatial Rend. Using a combination of his haki and devil fruit, Sabo tried to punch a hole in reality directly in front of him. The air cracked and shattered, his attempts clashing against the birdcage's strings with black lightning. He grunted and growled, his fingers digging into the air itself as he tried to bend the rules of reality, looking for the shaking frequency that would counter Doflamingo's haki and break the birdcage's strings. Come on, he hissed. The black lightning increased before there was a massive crack, launching Revolutionary backward into a building. "Sabo," Koala yelled, running to his side. The blonde rubbed his head with a wince, his fingers bleeding. "Sabo, are you okay?" "I will be, assuming we survive," he chuckled. "The shame I feel is immeasurable," a voice commented, a repeated tap-tap sounding with the words. Those able to look back only for their eyes to boggle at the sight of three men approaching them. The one in the lead, a blind man dressed in purple, stepped toward them. "To think our situations have come to this." "Admiral," Sabo muttered. "Admiral Interrobang," most of the fighters screamed, several abandoning their struggle against the birdcage to ready themselves for a fight. "Calm yourselves," Fujitora said. "I am not here to fight, neither are Jonathan nor Drake. Rather, I felt that we had something you are in need of." "We don't need anything from you," Bartolomeo growled. Nami was thankful growling was all he could do at the moment while keeping the barrier up. "What are you doing here, Admiral?" Coby hissed. "Looking for a fight?" Frankie questioned. "WWE can take you," Usopp stuttered. "I am here to try to make up for certain foolish decisions, not to fight," the man replied. "You're correct, Tri-Horn. Our choice to stay separated to avoid court-martialing was cowardly. It is a shame it took a pirate calling us out for us to see that." "Then you're not here to arrest us?" Bartolomeo blinked. "No, not at the moment. Rather, I have ordered the Marines under my command to focus on protecting civilians and attempting to stop the birdcage. No, I'm here to offer a chance to right a wrong from long ago." He held out his hand toward one of the men, the youngest there. He offered a larger snail to the admiral. Fujitora stepped forward toward Viola. "I understand you are Princess Riku Viola, yes?" "Well, yes," Viola answered, eyeing the man warily. Her hold on the unconscious Zone niece in her palm tightened. "Why?" Tri-Horn made it apparent how wrong the world government has handled this situation for the last decade. "The pain you and your family has gone through is the fault of our ignorance and inaction. If you were to demand my head in recompense, I would offer it willingly." "I don't need that," Viola replied with a snarl. "I'd rather have Doflamingo's head on a pike." "I don't have the authority, then you're useless," the princess hissed. "We cannot make up for what you've gone through," Fujitora said. "We can only offer this." He held out the snail, Viola's eyes widening. She took the snail. Its shell had been decorated with the crest of Dressrosa, but it had long since been defaced with Doflamingo's smiley symbol painted over it. "This is the snail connected to the country's announcement systems." "It is. I sent Lieutenant Commander Drake to the castle to retrieve it while Vice Admiral Jonathan and I directed rescue operations. Now, you have an unobstructed voice to the entirety of the country away from the warlord's thumb." Viola studied the snail, silently envying the mollusk sleeping in her hand. How simple life would be if she needed only wake to transmit another's voice or eat before returning to sleep. She looked at Rebecca in her other hand. Viola sucked in a breath and woke the snail, letting the feedback fade. "People of Dressrosa. Believe me or not, but my name is Princess Riku Viola, the only surviving daughter of Riku Doldo III. Today, with that bastard Doflamingo's reign at an end, I can finally tell the truth of the monster who usurped the throne. For 10 years have I toiled, living as Doflamingo's plaything in return for the lives of my father and niece, even as they were forced into battle after battle within the Kurita Coliseum for their own lives. While they survived in jail cells, suffering day after day for the amusement of a people lied to, I was trapped in a gilded cage with the name Violet, made to kill those who questioned Doflamingo's rule as his unwilling assassin by day and to warm his bed by night. Tears rolled down her cheeks, sobs threatening to choke her. Now that she was free to speak, to tell her story to her people, her legs gave out. Viola fell to her knees but refused to stop speaking. A barrier scooped her up, allowing her to continue without having to worry about the encroaching birdcage. 10 years ago, when Doflamingo first appeared, he came to my father with a deal he could not refuse. Doflamingo is an exiled celestial dragon, and it was the Don Quixote family that ruled Dressrosa before their so-called ascension. When he returned, he claimed Dressrosa was his birthright, that we of the Riku family have only held it in trust waiting for them to return. Doflamingo gave my father two choices: to give over Dressrosa to him or to buy it for 10 billion berry. Yes, you heard that right. Doflamingo demanded a price of 10 billion for my father to maintain his position. A position, may I remind those of you old enough to remember it, that was earned. Father was not a perfect man, but he dearly loved this country and her people. That was why King Riku Doldo III bowed his head that night, crying and begging for your trust, and despite reaching the required sum, Doflamingo reneged. Using a technique he called parasite, Doflamingo was able to take control of my father and a number of his soldiers. It was not of their own volition that they were made to ride out and slaughter their own people. Did you never think Doflamingo's timing was suspicious? That a so-called savior for our country would appear the same night in which a good king supposedly went mad? It was his plan all along. Some of you may remember my older sister Scarlet, who abdicated her claim to the throne to wed Kairos, a former gladiator who rose to the title of knight captain. Many of you know that her daughter Rebecca, my niece, was forced to fight in the Colosseum. What you don't know is that Doflamingo had Scarlet murdered after Kairos was turned into the first toy on Dressrosa. That's right, my sister died having forgotten the love of her life and the father of her child. Doflamingo and Diamante would brag about it and laugh every year on the anniversary. But now I received news that my father and Kairos are dead, killed by Diamante defending Rebecca. The two men who most loved this country gave their lives today in a sacrifice to bring down 1S and to defend a girl forced to grow up too fast in so-called peaceful times. I am sorry you had to learn the truth this way. I am sorry you had to learn that the last 10 years of your lives have been one lie after another. I am sorry that those of you who will feel shame for your manipulated actions will be unable to properly apologize to those who have been most wronged.
But now I, Princess Riku Viola, heir to the throne, do give you this order. Fight. Fight for your country. Fight for your families. Fight for your very lives. If any of the Doflamingo pirates remain, if any marine professes to fight for their warlord, if any pirate still swears fealty, show them that we the people of Dressrosa will not be cowed. This is our land, our nation, our home. Tyrants, invaders, and those who bow to them will no longer be tolerated here.
A great cheer rose from within the city, loud enough to even be heard on the edges of the birdcage. Viola couldn't help the teary-eyed smile. Dressrosa's freedom was at hand. Viola's words faded into an echo as the cheers of the people of Dressrosa rose from various streets some ways off. Doflamingo simply frowned, directing his gaze toward the Colosseum and where he suspected Viola to be currently. He'd need to do something special for her death in the coming hour if she wasn't killed by the birdcage. It was becoming increasingly clear that he could be the only one allowed to survive on the island. It's such a pain to personally kill all the riffraff, he muttered to himself, quietly lamenting the loss of his subordinates to do the killing for him. He was a celestial dragon. He shouldn't have to kill anyone with his own hand if he didn't want to. Men, go, Luffy hissed, turning the tyrant's attention back on him. Hockey miasma swirled around the teen, sticking to his skin like dust. There were several punctures in his torso from the flap thread, but Straw Hat's defiant glare remained such. You won't win today. Don't you see? The man questioned. I already have. I won by right of my birth. I won by right of my power. I will destroy this nation and kill everyone on the island, and the world government will still do nothing to stop me by nature of my heritage. I am a god among mortals like yourself. A god among mortals? Luffy echoed through gritted, bloodied teeth. I've heard that before. We kicked his ass just like we'll kick yours. The hockey miasma finished sticking to the younger man, Luffy wrenching one arm hard enough to pull it and the tendril of string holding it close enough to reach his mouth. Fourth gear. Go on, then, Doflamingo laughed. I'll simply take control of you and use you to slaughter your own crew. I will. Kong Bazooka. Doflamingo bounced out of the sudden crater below him. But Luffy refused to give the man a moment to breath now that he was freed of Doflamingo's hold. Punches and kicks rained down on the man, each one trying to render the fallen celestial dragon down and out. Said man snarled, a number of strings wrapping around Luffy's wrist upon the next punch to come down. Doflamingo yanked, simultaneously pulling Luffy forward while also propelling himself upward. Excess yarn whip. Luffy raised his free hand, the attack driving him down into the ground before his rubbery body could redirect the attack and make the young father bounce off the ruined road. He was panting, steam wafting from his mouth and shoulders. He knew he was reaching his limit, possibly shortening his own lifespan with each second, but to lose it now would mean death for himself, his friends, and every person on the island. He bounced forward, his punches meeting and shattering each of Doflamingo's spider-web shields as the king was forced into retreat. Every shattered block only made the veins on his forehead seem more and more pronounced, the buildings around him each turning to strain. "I tire of this game of ours," Doflamingo decided, 16 tendrils larger than any before rising behind him, each one's entire length covered and imbued with haki. "Die like the common scum you are, Straw Hat." 16 sacred assassin's bullets. Threads of gods. Luffy recognized the final gambit for what it was, recognized that there was no power to be held back in this moment no matter the cost. He sucked in as the 16 sacred bullets approached, blowing air into his arm to further increase the size of his fist. He bounced backward toward the castle plateau, buying precious time as Doflamingo's final attack chased him. He reached the cliff. "Die, Straw Hat!" Luffy flipped back, planting his feet, and bounce. The force cratered the cliff, nearly making a cave. Goon Goon King Kong Guunnnnnnn. The 16 sacred bullets punched into the increased size of his fingers and knuckles, but Luffy ignored it outside a single flinch. He kicked with his self-made propulsion, his fist drawing closer and closer to Doflamingo. Luffy did not see his face the moment before impact, when Doflamingo realized the inevitability of the situation and how his underestimation of the boy before him shattered the rules of the world he himself wanted to destroy. The 16 sacred bullets shattered, the stone below them crumpled, and the King Kong gun landed. One moment was the Tyrant King there, the next gone as the momentum of the impact was transferred to him. Blood marked a trail as the now mercifully unconscious warlord flew through the city, smashing through building after building in a straight line toward the coast. "Duck!" Usopp screamed, his ears picking up and recognizing the whistling in the air well before anyone else could notice. Haruden flattened a number of structures in his following of the order before the blurred form of Doflamingo zoomed past them, smashing into and through the now stopped birdcage. There was a small shower of blood and pink feathers as the string shattered without the maintained haki of its creator. Doflamingo continued to ragdoll through the air over the remainder of the now shredded city before, with an impact heard across the island, slamming into one of the massive boulders that ringed the island, his body trapped in an imprint of himself. Far away, his body deflating back to its original proportions, Luffy grinned weakly. "Ha, ha, ha, that was for being an asshole, Mingo." He flopped over unconscious. Dressrosa was free. Rebecca woke slowly, the bright sunrise filtering through the window of the cottage. Her body ached, her head throbbed, and her right arm itched. She shifted, a poke in her chest causing her to realize that she must have slept in her armor again. The guards must have felt particularly vengeful yesterday if they refused her the regular blanket. She groaned, pushing herself up into a sitting position with her left hand as her right rose to rub her head. Except, her right hand didn't rub her head. She blinked, needing several seconds to comprehend that her right hand, her near entire right forearm, actually, was missing. Rebecca's eyes widened, the events of the previous day coming back to her, and she screamed. The scream from upstairs jolted several of the pirates awake, startling others who were already about their business. "Oh dear," Robin sighed, turning the page of the newspaper in her hand. She sat in a chair by the side of the sleeping Zoro, the man having been found with Jinbei that morning, both fully asleep and in cuffs being carried away by Marines. Jinbei claimed they walked in circles all night before breaking into a ruined house to use the beds where the Marines found them as they slept. The swordsman had yet to wake up, but more due to laziness than injury. At the woman's side was Koala, who was taking the time to snuggle with her favorite associate before they had to separate again. "It seems the Princess of Dressrosa has awoken." "Z's," Zoro snored. Robin shook her head and stood, separating from the female revolutionary and making her way into the main room of the cottage. It was a packed space, the majority of the Straw Hats practically piled around the room in sleeping bunches now coming to the waking world. Coby was already on his feet, his hands reaching for swords on his back that were not there. Robin scanned the room. Luffy and Nami were absent, which was odd since they had been around when she went to sleep, but more concerning was the absence of Sanji and Amy. They had not been able to find either of the blondes the evening before after the war ended and Doflamingo was captured. Most of the crew agreed they were likely lost the same way Zoro and Jinbei had been, but that they had not yet been found was troubling. "Do not fret, Coby," Robin said, making her way through the piles of bodies that were groaning and trying in vain to curse the sunrise to death. "I believe that scream was only this country's poor princess recalling the cost of Doflamingo's dethroning." "Ah, right," Coby muttered with a sheepish chuckle. "I guess it would be best to have someone go comfort her since Queen Viola's busy?" "I would say that is the logical thing, yes. Care to join me?" Coby nodded and followed Robin up the stairs. They found Rebecca sitting in the bed, the covers pulled around her waist, as tears dripped from her cheeks. She was staring at the stump of her right arm and barely acknowledged their entrance. "Yesterday wasn't a dream, was it?" she asked in a whisper. "Father and grandfather, they died to protect me and killed Diamante." "Yes, I'm afraid so. I do think your arm will grow back, though," Coby offered, turning Rebecca's attention on him. "The zone devil fruit you now have is an animal well known for its regeneration. And Princess Mancheri of the dwarves tried regrowing your arm with her heal fruit and it didn't work. She said that means there's nothing to heal." "Well, the arm itself was absent," Robin commented. "Not even devil fruits can create something from nothing or with insufficient resources." Rebecca nodded, but Coby doubted she was really paying attention. To her, the fight that took her father and grandfather only happened moments ago. She needed time to come to terms with everything that happened. He stepped forward slowly, gently setting a hand on her shoulder. Rebecca looked up at him, her eyes watery. "I'm sorry, Rebecca," he said. "I know what it's like to lose parents. It's not easy." Rebecca grabbed the other pink-haired teen by the waist, crying into his shirt. Coby sighed, patting her back, and let her cry. His observation tickled the back of his mind, the young man turning enough to see Usopp looking at him from the stairs. He shrugged with an embarrassed smile. Robin sat on the bed beside Rebecca, setting a hand on her head while other arms gently pried the princess from the pirate. She whispered soothing words into her ear, the kind she needed but never got after her own personal tragedy all those years ago. "Please, leave her to me," Robin said, hugging Rebecca to her chest. "I fear today is going to be nearly as interesting for us as yesterday was." "I really hope you're wrong," Coby sighed, rubbing his head. "I'll go find Queen Viola and tell her Rebecca's awake." "Please do. She did request to be made aware post-haste." Coby returned to the stairs, leaving the comforting of the princess to the archaeologist. He grabbed his swords, not wanting to wander the mostly ruins of Dressrosa unarmed while the Marines were still around, and picked his way through the awakening pirates to the door. Usopp followed him, for company if nothing else. Needing to stretch his legs, the sniper said. The pirates were holed up in a small house on Flower Hill. Doflamingo's birdcage had sheared one side of the circular hill, nearly touching the house. The rest of the hill was covered in sunflowers, painting the area a beautiful yellow. Queen Viola should be directing the recovery efforts, Coby commented as they exited the house. The woman in question had taken control of the Marines on the island, directing them in humanitarian efforts over hunting the pirates who fought against Doflamingo and his regime. Given the loss of life and property, Coby agreed there were better uses of their time, not chasing him and his crew was just a bonus. Fortunately or unfortunately, Coby's observation could cover all the area that the birdcage had not managed to touch, but the populace that remained was so densely packed that it was hard to find more than a few prominent individuals, of whom Queen Viola did not belong. She was politically powerful and strong of will, but that did not translate to the kind of strength his observation registered. Still, Coby could feel the spirit of Vice Admiral Jonathan, and that was a start. The atmosphere in Dressrosa was downtrodden for the most part, civilians, dwarves, and Marines working in tandem to find what was salvageable from the rest of the city-state. Others banded together to form soup kitchens, pooling what food they had to feed those who had lost everything, the tiny race from Greenbit offering food from their own jungled isle. The ability of humans, and others, to band together in times of disaster filled Coby's heart with a warmth that combated the cold chill of the loss of life and the nagging guilt that he and his crew had failed everyone who died or lost a loved one the day before, the latter of whom involved just about everyone. Under Queen Viola, Dressrosa would recover, scarred but stronger in the end. Coby and Usopp made their way through the remains of the city, following the light Coby recognized as one of the most amenable Marines they'd ever met. "What's it like?" Usopp asked as they walked. "Observation hockey." It's not pleasant," Coby answered, glancing away. "The way mine manifested all at once, people dying all around, it hit me like a sledgehammer. Only pushing it aside to save Captain Luffy kept me from breaking down in that moment." "Is it still bad?" "Sometimes." Coby looked out over the distance to a couple of the buildings that had been sliced by the birdcage. Rayleigh often said observation is slightly different for everyone depending on what they use it for or how they unlock it. He said I'm empathetic, so I sense people like lights. They have colors, kind of. Not really, but I can get a sense of their emotions and what they're thinking if I focus. Rayleigh and Captain Luffy's observation is more focused on battle instinct and predicting what their opponent plan. You just say you could do that. Sure, but not with the speed that Captain Luffy can. Some people with that specialization can supposedly even see the future rather than just sense the intent. For instance, I can tell if someone plans on stabbing me, but I don't necessarily know what body part they'll aim for. The vitals are a pretty safe bet most of the time, but which one? I wonder what observation I'd unlock. Usopp rubbed his chin. Perhaps farsight, Coby grinned. Or hyper-awareness. Or both. Rayleigh had crewmates with observation like that. I wonder what kind my dad has. I need to start training. Coby's eyes turned as Usopp mused. his observation tracking a number of what he suspected were Marines or world government agents with clear stealth training. They were being tracked. He glanced at Usopp, the sniper lost in thought. Come on. Jonathan's this way, but he's not alone. The agents tracking them didn't approach as Coby and Usopp made their way out of the more or less intact section of city and into the northeast area closest to Green Bit. Queen Viola had mentioned wanting to fix that area first to prepare roads and lines to the Isle of the Dwarves. They were to be allies again, so it wouldn't do to ignore them or their help. The vegetation of Green Bit would be essential for feeding the citizens until more relief arrived.
Coby sensed one of the agents leaving their post, hurrying ahead in the direction in which he felt Jonathan's spirit. Momonga was there as well, he noted, with the third, dimmer light of Queen Viola. She was no warrior like the vice admirals, so it made sense their presence would overpower hers. Thankfully, that meant he and Usopp would not need to go on a scavenger hunt for the new queen.
They stepped into the area. The two vice admirals were overseeing the marine presence, said soldiers working in tandem with some of what remained of the Dressrosian army and many dwarves. The latter were using their insane strength to break the largest pieces of debris into smaller chunks that the humans could manage. The pirates drew closer. While Viola and Jonathan looked mostly unharmed, Vice Admiral Momonga was wrapped in bandages. His right arm hung in a sling and the right side of his face was covered in wrapped gauze that was stained red in 3 places. Use them for something, Coby heard Viola say. I'd rather not dump them into the ocean. We can use the concrete like cobble for roads, maybe. Goda knows we have enough. Jonathan turned as Coby and Usopp approached, dismissing the shadow of a figure. He grinned behind his mustache. Ah, Tri-Horn, long nose. Just where have you and your crew been hiding? Usopp grumbled about his moniker, as he always did. I'm sure you know, Vice Admiral, Coby replied, stiff. He still hadn't quite forgiven the man for his inaction, even if it was Admiral Fujitora who ordered it. We're here to talk with Queen Viola. You know we aren't supposed to allow such things. Is she awake? Viola hurried over, apparently have heard the conversation. Coby turned to her, noting that Princess Mancheri was on her shoulder. How is she? Rebecca's fine, physically, Coby answered. Her wounds have healed and I'm still pretty sure her arm will regenerate. Her mental status is a different story. One of our crewmates is caring for her right now. She knows what it's like to go through something like this, so you can be assured the princess is in good hands. As if any pirate hands are good, Momonga grumbled. Viola relaxed slightly. I'm glad to hear that. Can I visit? We won't stop you. V, tell them about the thing, Mancheri said. Oh, right. Viola nodded. We found something for your crew. For us, Queen Viola. Momonga tried to protest as the woman pulled out a small box. It was steel with a clasp on the front, the symbol of the Straw Hat Pirates engraved into the lid. Coby and Usopp glanced at each other before the former accepted the box. It's not trapped, the monarch said. We tested it already. It's only by my authority that it wasn't outright destroyed. I still protest, the injured Vice Admiral tried. To facilitate such collaborations of criminals is illegal. To allow for the facilitation of such unchecked. Please, open it, Viola waved off, ignoring the by-the-book Marine. Coby opened the box. Inside sat a rolled-up paper, stark white but trimmed with gold at the edges. It was held by a multicolored band of yellow, brown, and pink. Red wax sealing the knot in place. The symbol on the wax was a Jolly Roger, one with bushy hair and large lips. Coby held the box as Usopp slid the paper free, unrolling it so they could read it together. The lettering was pink, its cursive nearly impossible to read with the light shade. Greetings to the Straw Hat Pirates. You are cordially invited to the double wedding tying the Charlotte family and the Big Mom Pirates to the Vinsmoke family of Germa 66 and to yourselves. We are honored to ally ourselves with such prominent individuals through holy matrimony. In 1 week's time, Vinsmoke Sanji and Vinsmoke Reiju shall be wed to Charlotte Pudding and Charlotte Brownie, respectively, within the courtyard of the Whole Cake Chateau on Whole Cake Island, Totland, as arranged through Weightless Woman, Amy Pallant and King Vinsmoke Judge. The dress code is formal. Attendance is not optional and absence will be met with swift retaliation. RSVP with the number below. Coby had to reread the letter multiple times to fully comprehend the message, his dumbstruck expression finally turning to Usopp. He seemed equally surprised. I think we know where Sanji and Amy went, the zone said. I don't understand, Usopp muttered, blinking at the letter. The invitation. Amy arranged a wedding for Sanji. Why? When? Who would agree to marry him? It is arranged. We need to attend just to apologize. Coby bit back a chuckle at the way Usopp defaulted to humor before returning seriousness. Big Mom is one of the emperors. If she did, I don't think Amy had much of a choice in the matter. And if she and Sanji are gone, well, they probably aren't even on the island anymore. Coby racked his brain, trying to remember anything that might help. She didn't tell us where she went, Usopp recalled. When we were separated, she just said she had to make a deal to keep her soul from being ripped out. Who could have the power to do something like that? Big Mom does, Jonathan put in. The pair of teens turned to him, the vice admiral chewing on the end of an old-fashioned pipe. Real name Charlotte Linlin. She possesses the power of the soul devil fruit, allowing her to manipulate, steal, and transfer an individual's literal lifespan, which she can infuse into even inanimate objects. It is one of the reasons she has at least 85 recorded children. No wonder they call her Big Mom, Coby muttered. Amy never mentioned anything about that, Usopp muttered. Why? That seems kind of important. Maybe the others will have an idea, the Rossett suggested. Queen Viola, would you like to meet your niece properly? You can't agree to go with these pirates, Momonga interjected. Pirates as a whole are untrustworthy. What if they attempt to kidnap you for ransom? Yeah, that sounds like us, Coby shot back with a roll of his eyes. We only just deposed the previous king in favor of her family, rescued her country from complete annihilation, and she entrusted us with the protection of the kingdom's princess rather than the Marines. Maybe that's what happens when you side with the ones who killed her father. Momonga's fingers tightened on the handle of his sword, his teeth gritting, but he did not have a rebuttal. I understand there is some distrust toward the Marines for actions taken previously, Jonathan said. Nevertheless, we will do everything we can to rectify our previous mistakes and provide reparation for the loss of life and property. That's a lot of words to say, sweep things under the rug, Coby grunted. Jonathan flinched. Jonathan here to you, Viola said. Coby noted her lack of using his rank. Momonga, if you're actually that concerned about my safety with our country's saviors, then you may accompany us. The Mohawked Vice Admiral grunted before stepping forward, deferring to the new queen. Viola handed off the clipboard in her hand to Jonathan. I look forward to seeing the hidey hole the pirates have crawled into, the bandaged man said. Not that you'll be able to do anything about it, Usopp commented. The trip was quiet for the most part. Any Dressrosian soldier they passed stopped their task to bow to Viola, prompting some, but not all, of the citizens to do the same. The dwarves would bow as well, though Coby wasn't sure if that was due to their respect of the Riku family or because of Princess Mancherry on Viola's shoulder. The trip passed like this, the group followed by whispering the full way. Coby caught a glimpse of a newspaper, its headline reading, Warlord King deposed, thousands dead in pirate raid. Alright, Coby sighed as Flower Hill came into view. Out with it, Momonga. Excuse me, the Marine questioned. I know you have questions for us, and, frankly, I've got a question or two of my own. So, ask them. Very well. Why did the Straw Hats choose to attack Doflamingo? Were your words about Dagger true? We allied with Law first. Doflamingo was his target. Some personal grudge or something. Teaming up with Smoker and Dagger was just icing on the cake. I see. So, upon planning to assault Dressrosa, you called your allies here? Not quite, the Zone interrupted. We found allies here, mostly due to Doflamingo's attempt to distract our captain with his late brother's devil fruit. Based on Frankie and Chopper's amendments to Usopp's story. Oi, said Sniper protested. Doflamingo had tossed them in a hole to have them turned into toys. That didn't sit well with them, and those that learned afterward were more inclined to, fight the power, so to speak. King Riku had been in the hole with them. Coby glanced at Viola whose eyes were downcast. When Mary declared war, some of the fighters picked a side and others tried to stay out of it until Doflamingo's men or the Marines attacked them assuming they had our so-called army built from there. Then the one claiming to be Straw Hat's brother. Sabo, yeah, he, Captain Luffy, and their brother Ace grew up together. They aren't biologically related. Captain Luffy thought Sabo was dead for a long time and he almost was. Seems the Revolutionary Army found him and took him in, but amnesia from brain trauma is a hell of a separator. Momonga was silent for a minute, probably committing the information to memory. Were you aware of Blackleg, Sanji's status as a member of the Vinsmoke family? Not until we went through Fishman Island, Coby answered, seeing no harm in the information. Even then, it didn't seem all that relevant. Only used it to lord over Zoro and get on his nerves, really, Usopp recalled. Sanji never talked about them and we never asked, Coby continued. As far as Sanji's concerned, his father figure and mentor is the old chef from whom he learned to cook. Momonga hummed. Now then, if I may ask my question. I will not guarantee an answer. What happened to you? We didn't rough you up that bad. Ah, my injuries. Momonga looked down at his cast. I got lucky. Doflamingo's birdcage caught me while I was unconscious, but I was fortunate enough to meet any obstacles as it dragged me along. He shuddered, remembering the dismembered remains of those not as fortunate as he. I will scar, but that is better than death. Scars are no shame unless they mar your back from running away, Coby agreed, fighting the urge to touch his own. I'm sure you understand that as a swordsman. I do. Viola and Mancherry glanced at each other as Coby and Momonga shared a moment of understanding. Mancherry rolled her eyes. Boys. Oi, I'm a boy, too, Usopp pointed out. That's a musclehead thing. The moment passed. Well, assuming you all are not arrested, where to next for the Straw Hat Pirates and Trafalgar? Law's dead. Momonga stopped, forcing the others to pause, turning to look at him. Excuse me, he blinked. Law's dead, Usopp repeated. Doflamingo killed him personally. Luffy held a funeral for him before we could properly rest. I imagine his crew will be by at some point to pay their respects, Queen Viola, Coby commented. Trafalgar Law, dead, Momonga echoed, his mind clearly racing, I see. As for the rest of us, well, I guess we have a wedding to attend in a week. Momonga nodded but said nothing else as they climbed the stairway in the side of Flower Hill. Some of them on the side affected by the birdcage were a little more unstable, but the pirates and marine had their own ways of getting around the danger, and methods to assist the queen and dwarven princess. The little house in which the pirates, those who were directly allied to the Straw Hats and had not immediately fled, anyway, had been resting in was now a racket of noise. Coby sighed and pushed the door open. Hungry, Luffy, Chopper, and Ace yelled, the trio banging their palms on a small table. Bartolomeo and Gambia knelt in the corner, praising Luffy's appetite, while Sabo reminisced on the scene and Koala laughed beside him. A plethora of arms worked in an eye-filled kitchen as Robin used her powers to prepare a stopgap on their captain's hunger. Nami sighed at the table, having clearly lost a battle to keep them restrained. I hope this isn't a bad time, Coby said, announcing their presence. Coby. Luffy greeted with the others of the crew. Usopp, there you are. Where's Rebecca? Viola asked, stepping into the house. Eyes turned on her before narrowing in on her marine escort with distrust. Who? Luffy asked. Pink hair, missing arm, Coby easily answered. Oh, her. Robin's upstairs with her. Nami was just complaining about how much that devil fruit. Shut up, his wife yelled, punching him over the head. It said a lot that no one other than Bartolomeo and Gambia showed any concern for the rubber man. Robin must have had a bloomed ear in the downstairs area since she appeared at the top of the stairs. Rebecca with her. The princess looked healthy enough, her eyes red from crying, but she had changed out of her armor into a simple yellow dress. Robin walked her down. Rebecca, Viola said, stepping forward. She took the girl's remaining hand in both of her own when she was close enough. You probably don't remember me, but I'm your Aunt Viola. Your mother was my sister Scarlet. I'm so sorry I couldn't do more than ensure Doflamingo didn't have you executed. Rebecca threw her arm around Viola, dragging her into a hug. The dark-haired woman froze for a second before reciprocating. I'm so glad you're alive. The women sunk to the floor as all sound and motion stopped, aunt and niece holding each other. Rebecca sniffled, a new wave of tears starting to roll down her cheeks. Viola felt her own tears start as the full weight of the one-day war bared down on her in a way she couldn't delay with responsibility or duty. Mostly unaffected by the heartwarming scene, Momonga scanned the room, noting that only 5 individuals outside the queen and princess did not have bounties, and 3 of those were now known members of the Revolutionary Army. He reached for his sword. I wouldn't do that if I were you, a man said, the vice admiral looking into the red and black roulette wheel eyes of William D. Chapston. There was a younger woman behind him, several daggers and throwing knives between her fingers. The marine recognized this as Chapston's supposedly adopted daughter, Blue Blood, Doxy. Frankly, I don't think you'd stand half a chance against some of the people in here one-on-one. Trying to take them all at once is a one-way trip to hell. Reluctantly, Momonga let go of his sword and stepped back, outside of the building. Viola and Rebecca slowly recovered from their moment, the former on her feet. Rebecca blushed as her stomach growled, something that caused Luffy and Ace to laugh. Food will be ready soon, Robin offered, her arms still working in the kitchen. Now, if only we could locate our chef. Well, actually, Coby began. It seems Sanji's been kidnapped for a shotgun wedding?
On the couch, Zoro spat out his booze, coughing. What in Terabang? A number of others demanded. Not knowing how better to describe it, Coby and Usopp offered Nami the invitation they had received. She read through it quickly, others gathered behind to read it over her shoulder. How the heck did this happen? She questioned, conscious that her son was in the room. Oh, Frankie blinked. So that's what she super meant. I'm sorry, Nami began, rounding on the sideboard, you knew? When Amy first returned to Sunny, she said she super didn't want to return to wherever she was when we were away, something about a promise she made. I super joked about one of us having to get married and she got all quiet and shifty. You didn't think to mention that? Coby demanded. Frankie shrugged. I shouldn't be surprised, Jinbei grunted. What do you mean, Jinbei? Luffy asked, turning to face the fish man where he and Hack had been discussing martial arts forms. Big Mom is well known for marrying off her children to form alliances with other pirate crews, most of which then become her subordinates. My own crew, the Sun Pirates, are there in Thailand already, but I don't know how their forgetting about my existence may have affected our plans. The Sun Pirates? Nami blinked, her eyebrows scrunching. That sounds familiar for some reason. Wait, the pirates turned as Koala took a hesitant step forward. The Sun Pirates? As in Fisher Tiger's crew? They're still around? Indeed. Why do you ask? I'm Koala.
Jinbei was silent for several seconds before his eyes widened. Go, you're the little girl we saved all those years ago? It's me. I was the little slave girl. Koala ran forward, hugging Jinbei tightly. I should have recognized you sooner. I was a toy for a long time. I don't blame you for forgetting, Koala, but I'm glad to see you've grown up to find yourself. I'm fighting for freedom, she said. I want to help make a world where no one else ever has to pretend to smile for their life. Koby felt like there was a lot of backstory he was missing, but he was glad that Koala's apparent reunion with Jinbei delayed Nami's realization of Jinbei's connection to Arlong. That was a realization and discussion that they didn't need to have in front of people outside the crew. Good grief, the navigator sighed, her head in her hand. Back to Sanji's apparent wedding. I guess we know where we're going after we meet up with the others. I must object. Kinemon interrupted. My companions and I must return to Wano quickly. The groundwork must be laid if we are to depose Orochi and Kaido. We still have to meet with the others, Luffy grinned. We can talk about it then. But, Sanji is one of our strongest fighters and Amy's no slouch either, Coby commented. If we're fighting an emperor, I want them there to help. We could do without the royal pain, Zoro snarked, chugging his booze again. I've got money that he dies of a nosebleed on the honeymoon. Zoro-sensei, the Rossett admonished. Wah wah, Billy agreed. A disembodied hand smacked the green-haired swordsman in the back of the head. Damn it, woman, said swordsman barked. We're not just ditching Sanji and Amy because they're out of the way, Usopp yelled, his legs shaking. Yo-ho-ho, Brook laughed. Are you saying that because you value the defense they can offer, Usopp? No, you pirates sure are something else, Sabo grinned. Robin's arms finished their cooking, distributing food to the group. Luffy and Ace cheered, immediately digging into the food. The others were slower to eat, making space at the table for Viola and Rebecca. Straw Hats and allies, a familiar voice roared from outside. Come out and surrender yourselves. Oh, go to damn it, Coby hissed. He glanced out the window to see a full regiment of Marines. Helmeppo at the head with a mega shell den amplifying his voice. Admiral Fujitora stood beside him, a sad, resigned look on his face. Don't you worry, Mr. Luffy-sama-senpai, Bartolomeo called. I'll hold him off. Nah, we'll handle this, Luffy grinned. He stood, gathering Ace into his arms and heading for the door. His crew and allies followed, Viola and Rebecca bringing up the rear. Helmeppo grinned a sick grin as the pirates, revolutionaries, and samurai exited the building. The admiral at his side, somewhat, looked away and shook his head, clearly against whatever orders they'd been given. Greetings, rebellious scum, Helmeppo said. By direct order of Fleet Admiral Sakazuki, you are all under arrest. I don't think so, Coby replied, already growing into his hybrid mode. He grabbed the handles of his Shokusha and Imono. Do you think you have the power here to stop us? Of course. Helmeppo snapped his fingers, a plethora of vice admirals walking out of the crowd. Only Jonathan was absent and, despite various injuries, each one looked ready to fight. Coby counted 13 vice admirals with a glance. If they fought, he didn't like their chances. Even if they won, it wouldn't look good for Dressrosa and the surroundings. Surrender. We're not going down without a fight, Zoro grunted, unsheathing Kitetsu 3 by an inch. Please give us an excuse, Vice Admiral Onigumo begged, his hybrid form spider leg arms grabbing the handles of his own 8 swords, please. Sabo flexed his fingers, tiny cracks starting to crackle in his palms. Dalmatian growled, hunching over onto all fours. Nami pulled out her Klimatak, running through the different air currents that would work best. A vice admiral with a big, black beard hefted a giant clam shell on a pole, his body turning into a humanoid otter. Billy spread his wings, electricity dancing between his tail feathers. Maynard threw his coat and shirt away, punching his knuckles together. Brook laughed, slowly drawing Soul Solid. The scarred form Doberman drew his sword. William D. Chapston formed a roulette wheel on his arm. Stop! Both sides paused, Viola stomping her way between them. Rebecca and Mancherry watched with terror, the latter clinging to the former's neck. What are you doing? We're here to arrest these wanted pirates, Helmeppo answered. Step aside. I am Riku Viola, Queen of Dressrosa, and you will all stand down. I'm sorry, Your Highness, Fujitora muttered reluctantly. The world government has authority to extradite international criminals from allied nations without the approval of the reigning monarch. The orders of the fleet admiral overtake yours in this matter. Coby could feel his disgust at his own words. Likely, the rest of the vice admirals agreed with Helmeppo in this moment, leaving the admiral himself only able to recluse himself or be here to mitigate as much damage as he could. That's right, Helmeppo agreed with a laugh. Now hand the pirates and rebels over, Queen Viola. The woman was quiet for a long moment, sweat beading her forehead as loyalty to her country warred with loyalty to those who had liberated it. She could not allow those who had defeated Doflamingo to receive arrest as recompense for their good, if violent, deed. No, Viola decided. You will not arrest them. Do you understand your position here? Helmeppo demanded. Do you know what defying the world government would mean for you and your country? Especially when Dressrosa is in such a fragile state? A country can buy the temporary sanctuary of criminals, the queen said, many of the vice admirals going straight at her words. Eyes widened and weapons dipped as they registered her meaning. The hell are you talking about? I wish to invoke the sacrifice of royal protection? A collective gasp came from the group of marines, the younger ones looking at the older in confusion. Admira slack. Queen Viola, a tiny, gray-haired woman among the vice admirals said, surely you aren't serious, these pirates aren't worth. These pirates and their allies have saved my country, as such, I will invoke the sacrifice. That's bull, Helmeppo began before gravity multiplied over him, squishing him into the ground. Admiral Fujitora stepped forward, taking command. The sacrifice is invoked, he intoned. The bounty of the Straw Hats alone total over 1.5 billion, not including their allies. What have you of equal or greater value to offer? Viola took in a breath. During the battle against Doflamingo, a great number of devil fruit users were killed, most of them on Doflamingo's crew as well as the supernova Trafalgar Law. Their fruits should be on the island or in the surrounding ships. In return for a maximum of 2 days protection, I will offer the Marines and the world government every one of those devil fruits and, she swallowed, and the lives of any who have since eaten them. If Fujitora were still able to see, he would have stared at her in disbelief. The vice admirals behind him whispered to each other, phrases like, op op, and flag flag, among other known fruits of Doflamingo's slain crewmates. To Fujitora's knowledge, the only subordinates possessing devil fruits who were not killed other than Doflamingo himself were Senor Pink and Buffalo, while Baby 5, Monet, Sugar, and Ezekiel Joan were all unaccounted for. That still left at least 7 devil fruits, the op-op fruit being bookmarked by the Marines among them. He sighed. You understand there is one remaining thing to the sacrifice of royal protection? I do, Viola nodded. After 2 weeks, I shall abdicate my throne and renounce my royal name. Neither I nor any of my offspring shall ever sit upon a throne ever again. My successor shall be my niece, the daughter of my older sister, Rebecca. The rosette in question gasped, trying to get words out, but nothing came forward from her but a hollow squeak. By the authority vested in me as an admiral of the Marines, I, Admiral Fujitora, accept the terms of Queen Riku Viola of Dressrosa's sacrifice of royal protection. In return for every uneaten devil fruit on the island, the Straw Hat Pirates and their allies shall have amnesty for 48 hours or until they leave the nation's borders, whichever comes first. This is the rule of law. Marines, disperse. Some grumbling, the vice admirals and marines left, sending glances back at the pirates and revolutionaries. Gravity returned to normal over the pile of purple goo that was Helmeppo, the logia snapping back to his regular form with a yell. This is ridiculous. Sakazuki-sensei will never agree to this. He doesn't have to, Fujitora grunted. I have. Retreat, Vice Admiral. Helmeppo grit his teeth, glaring at the pirates, Coby, Luffy, and Zoro in particular. Mark my words. You will die by my hand one day. This I swear. He turned, leaving. Fujitora was more composed, offering a small bow to the queen before taking his own leave. As they turned to spots in the distance, Viola shook, falling to her knees. Mancheri breathed into the silence. What did you do? Her actions would have great repercussions on the world, but until then, the temporary queen gave the ground a small smile, happy that at least her country's saviors were safe and that Dressrosa would be in good hands. The sun had not yet risen, but it was time for the Straw Hats and their closest allies to leave. The Marines probably had a man watching them, reporting their moves for just such a time, but with the night, it was unlikely enough Marines would appear to be able to stop them, if the man got past whatever pirate allies were watching for such a thing. I do wish we could do more for you, Viola said on the dock, one of the few things to survive Doflamingo's birdcage. You did so much for us. We didn't do enough for the price you paid, Coby replied. Enough of that, the now temporary queen admonished. Her one-armed successor and niece nodded beside her with a quivering lip. The price was steep, yes, but Doflamingo is gone, and that leaves the country a better sight than the alternative. She looked around, noting the Straw Hat allies that had remained for one reason or another. Bartolomeo was there since he had offered to take the Straw Hats to their destination. The Hapo Navy had remained so Don Chinjao could properly thank the one who had fixed his head and buried his grudge. The 3 division commanders of the new Whitebeard pirates had stuck around to ensure the Straw Hats' safety. Finally, Leo came to represent the Tontata, even if the Straw Hats had never had an official alliance with them. All the rest of the pirates and otherwise had fled already. I do wish we'd been able to do this with a little more pomp, ya know? Bartolomeo said. Use a hero, Mr. Luffy-sama senpai. Ya led us to victory. I don't want to be a hero, though, Luffy shrugged, holding Ace up with an arm. I don't want to be this great leader or anything. I just want to be the king of the pirates and the kind of guy Ace can look up to. Nami smiled at the scene before turning to the others. Well, we better do whatever this is and leave before the Marines show up. I'm sure they know we're here. Unlikely, 12th Division Commander Haruta snickered conspiratorially. Right, of course, Bartolomeo agreed with Nami at the same time. We was talking to Mr. Sabo about things before he and the other revolutionaries up and vanished, and he wanted a way to show how thankful we was. He gave us an idea. Don Chinjao lumbered in, carrying a tray with several sake cups and a tall bottle. This bottle was one of the few things that survived the fight in the castle, Viola commented, lifting said bottle from the tray. Rebecca approached from the side, Mancheri on her shoulder, as Leo inside came up to flank Bartolomeo. I can think of no better use for it. We was gonna try swearing loyalty to Ya, Bardo said, but Mr. Sabo said you'd hate that sort of thing. He knows me so well, Luffy laughed, she. That's why we want to drink with Ya, not as father and sons, though I really wanted that, Mr. Luffy-sama senpai, but as allies to the end. Brothers in arms. We will come running when anyone else calls. Luffy smiled. I can agree to that. Viola picked up the bottle as everyone exchanged smiles, the woman filling the cups of those who had saved her country. Each captain or commander took a saucer of sake, raising them high. From now on, we're allies to the Straw Hat Pirates, Bartolomeo proclaimed, unable to fully remove the little squeak in his voice. We have the Bardo Club. We have the Happo Navy, Sai agreed, Baby 5 peeking over his shoulder. We have the new Whitebeard Pirates, Haruta, Vista, and Aizu chorused together. We have the Red Scabbards of Wano, Kinnaman added, Aizu clinking his cup with his old friend. We have the Sun Pirates of Fishman Island, Jinbei grunted, knowing his crew would agree despite his intention to join the Straw Hats permanently. We have the Tontata, Leo grinned, Mancheri jumping down to stand at his side. And we have the Riku family, Viola finished, she and Rebecca taking cups of their own. Everyone raised their saucers, Luffy doing the same. We hereby swear this vow of brotherhood and friendship with the Straw Hat Pirates. May our war-forged bonds never waver. Here, Kanpai. Every leader drank. Luffy gagged slightly at the taste while Leo and Mancheri shared the same cup. The princess waiting to drink from the same spot in an obvious hint the little warrior completely missed, once the cups were empty. And the bottle since Zoro had swiped it, Luffy declared a party to be had as they sailed away. The natives to the island promised to have a small one of their own but wished the pirates all the fun they'd earned. Oh, that reminds me, Luffy said, pulling a sheet of paper out of his pocket. He held it out toward Viola. Take a piece of this. It's a vivre card that Sabo had made for me. It'll move toward me if it's not held down and will burn if I'm dying or something. Don't worry, though, it'll grow back. She. The queen ripped a corner of the page before Luffy offered it to each of his other allies, each taking a piece. Bartolomeo started blubbering about a special glass container. Luffy found the whole exchange kind of fun, a piece of Sabo's own vivre card now sewn into his hat where their brothers used to be. Bye. Luffy waved as he and his crew got onto the ship of the Bardo Club pirates, trying to ignore its aesthetics for the time being, which was tied to 4 other ships in a line. The 5 ships dropped their sails at the same time and headed out to sea before the sun had a chance to rise. The 7 other ships of the Happo Navy flanked them, keeping pace in a protective circle. Luffy turned to those around him as Dressrosa shrank behind them, Viola, Rebecca, Leo, and Mancheri becoming only specks in the distance. Now, let's party. And party they did. There was an overabundance of meat and booze for everyone to enjoy. Brook played in time with the other musicians on his violin, Robin adding her own playing on the piano now and then. Ace wowed everyone with his new devil fruit powers trying, and mostly failing, though no one told him to make shapes with the fire. The others danced, sang, and made merry, though Coby found himself sitting on the sidelines, staring into his cup. Barry, for your thoughts, Robin asked, sitting down beside him. Is this worth a party? He asked after a moment, looking over as Nami and Zoro tried to outdrink each other and 24 other pirates from various crews. We failed to save so many people. Law died. Sanji and Amy have been kidnapped by the Big Mom pirates. Queen Viola sacrificed her royal status to protect us. What point is there in moping? Robin countered with a small smile, watching Ace dance with Frankie, Chopper, and Brooke. But, you are focusing too much on the past, Coby. That's rich coming from you, Ms. Archaeologist. Robin gave a chuckle, and even Coby was forced to give a small smile. What I mean is we cannot change what has already happened. All of our Nakama survived despite the dangerous battles, and Dressrosa is looking forward to better times. We cannot let the losses overshadow our victory.
Coby looked up, resting his head on the railing. The sky above was slowly turning blue as the sun rose. That's easier said than done, Robin.
Perhaps, the woman agreed, but consider this. We could be sailing into certain doom. Do you want to wallow in sadness now if tomorrow is our end? You're morbid, you know that? Robin laughed at the young man's words, louder this time. Coby pushed himself to his feet and downed his drink. I need a refill. Where's the keg? I believe Zoro and Nami had it last I saw. We'll need to have another brought up, then. Coby shook his head. Do you think the others are alright? It is possible they ran into a storm and have sunk, their bones now littering the stomachs of the sea kings that devoured them. Robin. Coby gasped. The woman's eyes twinkled. Assuming they aren't dead, how are we going to find them? We were kind of relying on Law there and he never told us where his crew was. We have access to Barty's den. We can simply call them. She grinned. Assuming they aren't dead. Coby rolled his eyes. They had both eaten the two of them. I think they have enough navigation know-how and control of the ship to keep afloat. And with Grace, Wind, and Jin, I think they'll be able to hold off the Marines that were chasing them. Robin did not respond. Oh, Mr. Luffy-sama senpai, there's someone I want you to meet. Why do I have a bad feeling about this? Coby muttered. Bartolomeo and his crew gave a fanfare and gestured as a figure rose from the floor. Behold, our Klabouterman, the going Luffy senpai. The fairy in question did look like Luffy, unsurprising given the figurehead, but his arms hung down to his shins, almost like a long arm but without any obvious elbows. The figure wore a white raincoat and was also smaller than Luffy by a third, wearing a backpack styled after the likeness of Mary's original figurehead, this most likely connected to the small room at the base of the main mast with a similar likeness. Frankly, Coby was just glad there was nothing to see of the chopper head rudder. Hi. The Klabouterman greeted, raising a hand so the arm bent into a low U. I'm little Luffy. He doesn't look like me at all, Luffy said. He looks almost exactly like you, the rest of the crew yelled. Nami smacking him on the back of the head. Luffy laughed and walked over to the Klabouterman, resting a hand on the fairy's hat. He blinked, trying to tug on it, but the hat did not move an inch. That's my head, the happy-go-lucky wood fairy said. As soon as we leave, I'm going to pretend I never saw this, Coby muttered. Well, if we're introducing our ships, Haruta grinned. What followed was a showing of how the reveal of Going Merry via her wanted poster had revolutionized sailing the world over. Every ship in the main fleet was alive, though that of the Happo Navy, the Happosei, could not yet manifest. Flower Sword, Vista's ship, named the Narcissus Rose, was a swordsman like the rest of his crew. He was on the taller side with blades of all sizes strapped to his person. His smile the same as his captain's. Zoro and Narcissus locked eyes and charged each other, the fairy showing off a style where he would throw various blades into the air, basically juggling them and using whatever came down. Swift Saber, Haruta's ship was named Avon Vale and manifested as a girl similar to the mermaid figurehead. She seemed to prefer frilly clothing like Haruta did, though in a more overtly feminine design that was still movable. She carried a long rifle on her shoulder and declared herself Usopp's rival, resulting in an instant competition between the two, and any other self-declared sniper, but none of them stood any chance. Finally, Izu's ship was called the Merryerade, or Mary for short, despite having manifested as female. The Klabouterman dressed like every other man on the crew except the captain. Her scallywag-worthy outfit decorated with pistols and with a pair of silver knuckle dusters hanging on her hips. She picked Don Chinjao out of the crowd, the 12th leader of the Happo Navy being the largest person there, and challenged him to an arm wrestling match. All this mirth and merriment lasted until the run rose, a thunderous boom echoing across the waves. A cannonball barely missed one of the Happo Navy ships ringing the main five, splashing into the water off the Merryerade's starboard. There was a massive coalition of pirate ships flying different flags, every one of them sailing directly toward the group. Who are these guys? Nami questioned as Mary raised a hand, catching a couple cannonballs in mid-flight. They appeared to be pirates that were allied with Doflamingo, Jinbei grunted. I suspect they want revenge for the loss of their employer. They want to fight, do they? Luffy grinned, cracking his knuckles. Happo Navy, Sai called, using his authority as the 13th leader. All hands to battle, break formation. We haven't had a good naval scrap in a while, Haruta smirked. Avon, let's show them the power of the 12th division. Not so fast, Izu called. Kanjuro, let me show you the power of my division. Mary, full speed ahead. We won't be left out, Vista laughed. Narcissus, hard to starboard. Ain't nobody touching Mr. Luffy-sama senpai, Bartolomeo declared. Let's sink these bastards. Despite Ace's protests, Nami picked him up and carried him into the Going Luffy senpai's lounge, not wanting him to witness the destruction. The following battle was a party all its own, with the 5.5 crews dividing the spoils of over 3 dozen New World crews between them. Nami ensured it was all counted properly. There, that should do it, she nodded, ignoring the flaming wreckage and screams for help in the distance. They attacked first, so they would get no quarter from her. The Happo Navy set about collecting them, however, possibly for any bounties among them. That reminded her. Oi, Bart. What's with the posters? The posters, Mrs. Nami, ma'am, the green-haired thug echoed. Oh, the posters, y'all saw them, then? Aren't they great? Why didn't you tell us our bounties went up? Our bounties went up, Luffy echoed, excited. I thought you knew, Bartolomeo answered. His eyes widened in realization. We gotta show yous. He and his men formed a living walkway, the ship's clabouterman rolling out a literal red carpet. The Straw Hats' new posters were pinned to a fancy board. Thankfully, it was more like an artist's exhibit than an altar, but that did not stop Bartolomeo from kneeling as he gestured to them. First up, Mr. Luffy-sama Senpai's bounty shot way up for beaten Doflamingo. You're now worth a whopping 550 million. That's worth even more than me, Aizu commented, being worth 510 million himself. Vista and Haruta chuckled, being in the same range. That's how much your brother was worth, Vista commented with a sad smile. He would have started another long rant about his cute baby brother if he were here to see it. Whoa, really? Little Ace gasped. Super Uncle Ace must have been super duper strong. He was, Haruta nodded, his eyes drifting to the boy's inherited hat, and you'll be just as strong as he was someday, too. Next, Bartolomeo continued. Mr. Zoro, 354 million. Nice, the man nodded, knocking back another jug of booze. And Mr. Zoro's only student, Mr. Coby, now wanted for 179 million. Koby's photo was taken while running, his hair out of his face due to the wind. With his slitted pupils, it almost made him look wild. The fourth member, Mrs. Monkey D. Nami. You're worth 107 million. Did you pose for your picture? Usopp asked. Nami's picture had her with her hands behind her head while wearing a dotted dress that hugged her shoulders and chest, given to her by Viola. I was posing for Luffy, she replied. It's a nice picture, though.
You broke 100. Luffy cheered, picking her up and spinning her. You're worth more than I was after beating Croc.
Huh, she chuckled. I guess I am. The fifth Straw Hat and the king of the snipers, Bartolomeo announced. Long nose, Usopp. Wanted for 150 million. What in Terabang? Usopp goggled. His picture had him perched atop one of his bamboo javelins, a hand on his goggles, smirking. Mr. Sanji is next as the sixth to join. He's worth 177 million now. Ha! Zoro laughed, throwing his head back at the "Only Alive" poster. Ha 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 ha. I'm worth literally double the swirly brow. Ha 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 ha. I bet his bounty's low because of the whole Vinsmoke thing, Coby commented, remembering the conversation about that with Vice Admiral Momonga. They want him only alive, after all. He also didn't get much time in the spotlight, Yoho, Brook offered. Once they dragged him off stage, he's been quiet as the dead. Well, except for me, yo-ho-ho. I do hope his coming marriage softens such a devastating blow to his pride, Robin said. He'll be fine, Frankie waved off. The last of the East Blue Straw Hats is also missing, but Mr. Jin is now worth 200 berry. Jin's poster had his hockey-coated wings flared, his tonfa not but golden blurs in his hands as he plowed through Marines in the Colosseum. Next, weightless woman, Amy is now worth a respectable 93 million. I expected it to be higher than that, Robin admitted, aware of what their missing crewmate did to Magpiece of the Doflamingo Pirates, or at least the final outcome. Her little sister also got a new bounty, Mood Painter, and Magpie of Color, Grace wanted for 91 million. The picture had Grace next to Coby in the heat of battle, but the zone was cut off at the border. There wasn't much to comment seeing as neither of the sisters was there. Moving on, we got the Monster Doctor, wanted for 62 million. They updated my picture, Chopper noted, his picture of him with his tongue out in deep concentration, though the object of his focus was out of frame. The amazing Devil Child is next, Bartolomeo said, showing the poster with Robin glancing over her shoulder, winking. Her bounty is now 120 million. Congrats, Robin, Luffy grinned. Thank you, Captain. Following that, we have the Cyborg Frankie, wanted for 94 million. That's the General Frankie, the cyborg protested. How'd they even get a picture of that? It hasn't been out since Fishman Island, and even then it was Sunny moving it around. She's not here at the moment, but Going Mary would be happy to know her bounty is now 109 million. She would be happy about that, Coby nodded, remembering her complaints as they were arriving in Dressrosa about not breaking 100. Mary's picture was an action shot, her mini cannonballs zipping through the frame so quickly that they were just blurs. She was smirking. The next poster was not the typical wanted poster at all, but a repurposed concert promotional poster with the lettering changed. This magnificent bounty poster is none other than the famous Soul King, wanted for 89 million. Yo-ho-ho. I do hope it doesn't show my eye bags. That's super not even a proper wanted poster, Frankie complained, seeing as he wasn't even on his own poster but Brooks was a concert flyer, so not super. The mount known the world over as the Thunderbird, Billy the Giga Fowl has a bounty of 50 million, Bartolomeo continued. Not bad for a bird, Zoro nodded into his booze. Wah, Billy agreed, wiggling a little dance. And last but certainly not least, wanted only alive for reasons unknown. We have the Heir of Chaos Monkey D. Ace, the newest logia of the Straw Hat Pirates and Prince to be wanted for a total of 102.3 million berry. Nami's worth more than Ace now, Coby observed. Nami chuckled to herself, having seen that and come to terms with it while she and Ace waited out the fight. I'd call for another party, but we just had one, Luffy grinned, wrapping his wife and son in a hug. He looked around the group. Anyway, we need to get to the rest of our crew. I'm sure you guys have places to be, too.
I suppose it is time we return to Kano, Sai commented, Baby 5 now sitting on his shoulder. She'd taken a liking to having him carry her around, either as a girl or as a weapon, and he had made no complaint. It made her feel closer to him, like she was of active use and import to him, like their souls were getting closer. Our business with Doflamingo is over, so there is little reason to stay out.
We have places to be as well, Haruta nodded. We came for Pop's fruit, but the Revolutionary Army ended up getting it. I suppose that's not so bad, though. Now we had to get back to trying to find Blackbeard. Luffy tilted his head. Who? You don't remember Interrobang? Much of his crew yelled, though Frankie and Brook didn't seem sure who Blackbeard was, either. He was the guy we met on Jaya, Coby offered. He was also the guy your brother was after, the one who turned him in, and the one who ended up, finishing off Whitebeard at the Battle of Marineford. As always, when he mentioned that day, the scar on his back itched. Oh, that guy. Yeah, that traitor's been a pain in our rears for the last couple years, Vista scowled. He's holed up on Hachinosu mostly, but his captains are too strong for us and they travel in groups. That and their collection of powerful devil fruits has made our battle difficult. And painful, Aizu added with mournful frown. They killed Curiel last month and hunted down Blamenko for his fruit last year. That's 4 of our division commanders we've lost since Pops died. 4 in Terabang, Coby gasped. Such had not reached the papers. Who else? Blenheim and Atmos. We've had to commission new ships to replace the ones we've lost, and Blackbeard only seems to keep getting stronger, his crew bigger. Aizu looked away. We're losing. He chewed on his glossed lip. We'll be there, Vista grinned, a large hand slapping down on Aizu's back hard enough to make his stumble. What? We'll be there with you in Wano. You want to go, don't you? We can't all go. If we do, Blackbeard will easily take several of our islands. We can't allow that, but… Then you can go, Vista interrupted with Haruta nodding along. Take your men in the Merriarade and meet the Straw Hats in Wano. That's where you're going, right? Yup, Luffy confirmed. Trafi wanted us to take Kaido down and we said we would. It doesn't matter that he's not here anymore. A promise is a promise, and we promised we would. Besides, Kin and Momo need us. Luffy don't know, Kinemon whispered, touched by his words. Then we'll trade numbers and be on our way, Sai said. Everyone did so and returned to their ships, waving to each other as they separated. Luffy turned to Bartolomeo, his crew, and half of the Straw Hats. Someone give the others a call, it's time to go. The Marines on the island were in a panic, the disappearance of the Straw Hats and their allies in the night dealing a hard blow to their morale. Fujitora had sat through a long lecture via Den Den Mushi about his refusal to go after them when word reached him of their gathering at the docks, the whole thing he had waved off with, I accepted the sacrifice of royal protection, Fleet Admiral. It would tarnish the reputation of the Marines if we attacked them. What message would that send to the unallied nations that are considering joining the world government? Sakazuki's, I don't care, was met with silence. Helmeppo wanted to give immediate chase, but they were too far gone. This panic and internal conflict was the sort of thing Valori Velo needed. The smaller scientist using the confusion to slip into the partially destroyed toy house. She knew from schematics she had seen while at Toy that the building was connected to the underground dock and that such was her best chance of getting off the island without being detected. She stalked the halls, silent as the dead and senses alert for anything amiss. The colorful walls were quiet, most of the lights flickering from damage to their wiring. Someone had ransacked the place, but it seemed they had found little of value, and what they did take left nothing for Velo or any other would-be raider. This did little to bother Velo since she always carried some Queen-branded energy rations for emergencies, for those zoom-in moments. She had been prepared to maul a soldier or 24 if any blocked her path, but she found nothing alive in the empty halls until reaching the door to the underground docks. There, crumpled in twin heaps on either side of the door, were 2 Dressrosian soldiers in dreadful shape, each buried in a mound of snow. This raised Velo's hackles, the ancient zone scientist shoving the door open and hurrying into the cavern. As she suspected from the dreadful states of the soldiers, the overly bouncy harpy that was Monet was below, talking with her little devil of a sister and a man Velo had never seen before. Velo's eyes narrowed as she let herself fall into a more primal mindset gifted by her devil fruit. She shifted, slinking behind mound ruined merchandise, now in her full zone form. Telling you, it's the best place, the man was saying. I'm not some sideshow for people to gawk at, arts. I should turn you into a toy for insulting my sister. Okay, first, you'd have to catch me, the man replied, clearly certain he could avoid them. Second, Buggy the Clown is also a warlord. We can find protection under his banner and easily fit right in. Are you calling us freaks? Monet demanded. How many harpies do you know? The man shot back. We could be treated as good as we were here. Better, even. I don't like clowns, the smaller sister whined. They're creepy. Do you have a better option that will hide you from the government? Neither sister responded. That's what I thought. Weren't you from a weird island? Sugar tried. Down under? I mean, it's nice enough for an island where everything wants to kill you. I thought you were from the South Blue, Monet blinked. I am. It's Down Under's king, though. King Saxton Hale had creatures brought in from the Grand Line for his barehanded hunting and, well, they got out. And the mercenaries are stuck in a stalemate because the creatures could crossbreed, apparently, if you want to help. Sounds like the kind of place that Flat Shorty Velo would like. Not for us, though. I'd rather avoid fighting anymore. Then Buggy is our best chance. That doesn't mean I have to like it. Look, all we need is a ticket in. We meet the clown, we wear his Jolly Roger, we're safe from the law. Monet sighed, covering her face with a wing. Fine, we don't have any better option. Good. We need a boat, then. Velo leapt from her perch, aiming for Monet with a mouth full of fire thanks to her cybernetics from her great and glorious Master Queen. The green-haired harpy spun, raising a wing in what would be a futile attempt to prevent her fatal, and well-deserved, melting, but the man jumped in the way. His hand turned into a key that caught Velo's bite, turning her snout away as the gout of flame shot off through a hole where the palm used to be. The Velociraptor zone tried to bite through the man's key hand, but the structure held. Cricky, that's a big lizard, he gasped. Velo aimed one of her hands, firing it off with an attached tube. Monet, however, was ready, the metal claw passing through her snowy body harmlessly. The scientist growled. Velo, Monet grunted. You're still alive and free? I'm dreadfully surprised the Marines haven't caught you either, bird cow, Velo hissed through the key in her mouth. Those of us out of the loop gonna get an explanation? The man asked, freeing his hand once the heat of the zone's mouth started getting painful. Velo is a scientist working for the Beast Pirates, Monet said. She went behind Caesar's back to improve his formula and was ready to ditch us, cutting Doflamingo out of the smile business. So he's not your precious young master anymore, Velo mocked. How dreadfully quick your loyalty fails, flighty as a mindless bird. Snow Rabbit. Monet flapped her wings, firing off several rabbit-shaped snowballs at the zone. Velo kicked off Ezekiel, dodging with a flip. She landed easily, growling at the trio. You can't think you can beat us all, mate, the man from down under said, his key hand returning to its normal, fleshy state. Looky here. We don't want trouble. We're just trying to do the Harry, something I bet you're doing, too. Can't we just leave? I would prefer to kill that dreadful, fat-chested bird brain, Velo hissed. Velo, drop it, Monet said. We had our differences and rivalry. Yes, I kidnapped you and we turned you into a toy. I get that, but Doflamingo's arrested now. There's no reason for us to stop you from taking your formula to Kaido. So that's it? The scientist questioned. You're just quitting? Yeah, basically, Ezekiel waved. Bills ain't gonna get paid with the bossman in jail. We gave it a burl, but sticking around would just be carrying on like a pork chop. I understood none of that. Neither did we, the sisters commented. Very well, then. Monet, it's been dreadful knowing you. I hope you drown at sea. If we ever meet again, I will do everything to kill you in the most dreadful way. The scientist transformed back into her human appearance and inspected the ships that were still there. None of them were in very good condition, but at least one would meet her needs. With 3 of them, the group of Doflamingo deserters had the freedom to pick a larger ship and set out to sea first. Velo followed them in a smaller ship, a cog, before turning north and more lazily floated than sailed. She pulled out her Dendenmushi. Cha, this is Valori Velo. I am not only alive, but I have a formula superior to Caesar's sad. Patch me through to Queen Sama. I need extraction. Viola and Rebecca were working at one of the soup kitchens, trying to help feed the people as they continued cleanup and rebuilding. Dressrosa Castle was still unlivable after the damage it sustained during Luffy and Doflamingo's fight, and the last members of the Riku family had agreed that the people's living conditions were far more important than their own, especially when rebuilding the castle would cost so much, even with the Tontata offering to help with the labor. The female pair could be mistaken for any other resident of the country if it wasn't for the constant guard nearby. The marine presence had dropped over the past couple of days, most of the vice admirals that had been on the island having moved on, thankfully taking Helmeppo with them. With them had been a sack of devil fruits, Viola having been able to use her own fruit power to see that they had found 10 devil fruits in total. Upon asking, Fujitora had openly confirmed their acquisition of the op fruit, the flag fruit, the sticky fruit, the rupture, stone, ton, and art fruits, as well as 3 others they could not identify, though Viola suspected one of them had belonged to poor Bian the dwarf, the bug fruit model. Hornet. The other 2, she had no idea. For the downtrodden people of the country, they fell back into the comfortable pleasure of music to ease their pain and worry. Mariachi and flamenco dancers putting on performances in the streets for all those needing uplifted spirits. Viola would occasionally put on such a show, performing for her subjects or teaching Rebecca similar between policy, diplomacy, royal manners, fiscal responsibility, and more things a queen to be is to know. There's a concert, a voice called, a young boy running through the streets. She's performing, the snails set up in the plaza. He ran off down the road, repeating his message. What was that about? Rebecca asked. She had taken to leaving her zone powers partially active, the change giving her skin a barely pink sheen and replacing her ears with pink external gills she used to keep her hair out of her face. Oh, it's probably that famous singer, Viola replied. She appeared a year ago or so, using some experimental snails to connect to all visual den and a good number of regular den all over the world. I heard Vegapunk contacted her about it, but I don't know the details. Do you mind if I go look? They didn't tell us anything about that in the Colosseum. Of course. Viola offered her niece a small hug. I can handle things here for a little while. Rebecca hugged her back quickly before taking her leave, a guard following her several paces behind. She heard the concert before reaching the plaza and seeing the projected screen. The female singer's voice beautiful enough to nearly put the princess in a trance. She arrived at the tail end of a song, its final notes quietly echoing in the alleys and buildings. It's so good to get to perform for you all, the singer said, striking a pose. I talked to VP and he told me about this call function, so that means I might be able to talk with you all. My den will only be active when I want it to be and my number is 999. Let's start a Q&A. Rebecca people from around the world called in, folks from all 6 seas giving her praise for her voice. Some of them complained about their problems and how the singer's concerts helped them forget all their worries for a while. And then there was an echo, a voice in the plaza and coming from the screen. I wish I could listen to you sing forever, the voice of a little girl said. Rebecca managed to pick her out of the ground, a small girl whose hair, like the singer's, was red on one side and white on the other. Everyone in our country is sad, but you make us happy. Everyone is sad, the singer echoed, responding to the girl. I'm so sorry, why is everyone sad? Because of pirates. We had a really mean pirate that pretended to be a good guy who was our king, and then these other pirates showed up and beat him up, but everything's bad now. Everything's broken and my daddy died and a whole lot of other people died. Pirates are the worst. If they could all just go away, the world would be better. The singer on the screen was silent for a moment. I agree. Pirates are bad people. If I could make them all stop, I would. She gave a smile. This sure got sad, huh? How about I sing another song to pick us up? She began to sing, a song of sadness and hope echoing over the waves across the world. I recall, that day we played together by the sea, just you and me. Still that scent of ocean seems to fade each passing day, it slips away. So I sing an old familiar song. I hope you know the one I will sing to call you back to me. On the other side of the screen, the songstress recited the words that she'd sung to herself countless times throughout the years, but she wasn't focused on her music. Instead, an idea was coming to her mind. Perhaps there was something she could do about the Great Pirate Era. Maybe she could create a new era, a new world, with her music. After all, no one can stop a change that comes through music. It would take a while, of course. She'd need to find ways to get her music out there so everyone could hear no matter where. A scheduled concert. Perhaps a crowd here on Logia in person. She'd have to write a new host of songs just for such a thing. It would be months of preparation, but if she pulled it off. Uda smiled to herself and sang. The pirates of the New World seek Laughtale, the final island where the great treasure One Piece is said to reside. Yet, only one man has ever reached this island of legend, Goldie. Roger, who is known as King of the Pirates. This is the Great Pirate Era, where the monsters of the New World fight for supremacy atop the stormy seas. And at the center of that storm is a crew called the Straw Hat Pirates. Their captain is a rubber man who ate the gum fruit. Monkey D. Luffy. With him are Zoro, Coby, his wife Nami, Usopp, Sanji, Jin, Grace, Amy, Chopper, Robin, Frankie, Mary, Brooke, Billy, his son Ace, and Jinbei. Together, this tight-knit group of 17 pirates will brave any adventure and challenge any rival until they reach the One Piece. As a navigator of some renown, Nami had expected the navigator of the Bardo Club to ask her for tips and tricks for sailing the dangerous waters of the New World. With all the fawning in the party and the excitement, she'd expected that the meeting was just pushed further and further back as other things filled up the effective noise capacity on the going Luffy. When, at the end of their first day of sailing with Bartolomeo and his crew of gang members turned pirates, Nami learned they did not have a navigator but instead called Gambia's grandmother for advice about every little thing. She was forced to conclude that the Bardo Club was dumb as rocks and nearly as lucky as Luffy. How have you made it this far in Terabang? She questioned, looking down at the seasick former gang. The only reason she was not cursing or beating them was the young boy in her arms and the bad example it would set for him to see her punching friends and allies, no matter how absolutely moronic and reckless they were on a daily basis. Granny always says, Bartolomeo wheezed through green lips, that gum helps an upset tummy. So that's why the ship is covered in chewing gum, Usopp realized. Wait, you should be used to sailing by now. You had to get all the way through paradise before getting to the new world. You shouldn't get seasick anymore. Gonna have to agree, Frankie nodded. Super not cool. We're so sorry, Mr. Frankie. Bartolomeo balled around several pieces of chewing gum. We're more used to being land pirates. Chopper, help them. Nami sighed, turning away. They're pitiful. On it, Nami, Chopper surged forward, getting to work, while Luffy just laughed at the poor states of their hosts. Bartolomeo, Gambia, and the others blubbered about how special it was to be treated by the amazing monster doctor of the Straw Hat Pirates. And while we're talking about your failures, get a navigator for Goda's sake. It's a miracle you all are still alive, much less afloat. We're sorry, Mrs. Nami. The Bardo Club chorused, more than half of them bowing down. Well, it's just that, Bartolomeo began. Just that there's no navigator that could possibly hold a candle to you. Well, when you put it like that, Nami grinned. Mommy likes compliments, Ace observed, making Nami realize she'd almost been distracted. Get a navigator, she repeated, back on topic. You can't just wander like Zoro does. Oi! The swordsman protested. He paused, as if expecting some new insult, but with Sanji absent, the opening was left silent. Ah, one question, Coby said. Do we even know where we're going? Of course we do. Luffy laughed. We're following the paper Law gave us. Okay, but where? Coby repeated. What island? Oh, the captain blinked. No idea. I was afraid of that, the pink-haired swordsman sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose. We're sailing into the unknown, and the one person who had an idea of what we will find isn't here anymore. Yeah, that's not going to be a fun conversation, Chopper agreed. Robin chose not to comment, finding this not the moment for one of her usual morbid jokes. She had enjoyed Law's presence and his reactions to the Straw Hats' continuous chaos, so she did not feel like now was the time for Hangman's humor, even if the joke was already in her mind. At no point did Law Dono mention his cruise location, Kinemon asked. Nope, Luffy confirmed. Just that this Vivre card goes to his panda. I thought it was a grizzly, Zoro offered. Nami fought back the urge to punch both of the idiots. She simply didn't have enough hands while holding Ace. It's a polar bear, she corrected with a sigh, and a navigator, and a really bad cartographer. 'Cause the lines were all fat and stuff, Ace piped up, remembering the map Law had used to outline their initial plan for Dressrosa. We could, you know, call our crewmates, Coby suggested forcefully. They could have beaten us there. They do have about a day's lead, Robin acknowledged. Of course, we are not sure how long the journey is. They may be just as confused as we, assuming they weren't sunk by the Marines and eaten by sea canes. You just couldn't help yourself, could you interrobang? Usopp yelled. Robin just smiled a smile that made Frankie, Chopper, and Usopp shiver with worry. Well, I'm going to go call. I'll go with you, Coby said, needing some time away from the Bardo Club and their cultish worship of the crew. The pair headed inside as Usopp pulled out his own personal den that he usually used to call Kaya. He placed the snail, named Truther, on a table and started dialing Shelly, the main den Mushi back on the sunny. Buddha Buddha bad up. Buddha Buddha bud up. Buca lick. Hi, this is Thousand Sunny, and I'm gonna be the ship of the king of the pirates. Oh Goda, Coby swore. She's exactly like Luffy. She's exactly like all of us, Usopp corrected. Is that supposed to make me feel better? Coby. Usopp, how's everything? We saw the paper. The paper? Usopp echoed. We didn't see the paper. Bart kept the wanted posters and threw the rest away. What did they say? Bart, Sunny blinked on the other side. They just talked about Daffy's fall and how Riku Viola was crowned queen since Daffy usurped her dad. It didn't really mention us outside of a paragraph or two. Really downplayed Captain Luffy and Traffy's roles, I'm sure. How's everyone? The crew's all good thanks to Chopper, Coby answered, but you should know that. We hitched a ride with a guy named Bartolomeo. He idolizes our crew and was happy to do it. We lost Law, though. Lost Law? What do you mean we lost Law? Did he stay behind? Well, from what Jinbei said, he, Zoro, Luffy, and Law tried to confront Doflamingo together, but he pulled a bait and switch and tossed them off a cliff, leaving Law alone. Law didn't make it. Oh, and really, was all there was to say about that. Coby hadn't exactly been close to Law, none of the Straw Hats really were. Luffy was probably the one who'd known the other captain best, and that had fueled his rage and hockey in that final fight. After that, he'd been sullen through the funerals for the fallen on their side, including King Riku and Kairos. Coby didn't remember most of it because of how emotional he'd been, still blaming himself for failing to save them. After the funeral, though, Luffy had stood up and said the dead don't want the living to stop living and had been his old self since, for the most part. How's Captain Luffy? I think he's been thinking, Coby replied, trying to find the right words to explain the almost hidden change he'd more felt in his hockey than seen from the Pirate King aspirant. When he thinks no one is looking, He'll give the crew a long look, especially Nami and Ace. So I wasn't just seeing things, Usopp blinked. I wonder what's going on in his head. Who knows? Sunny shrugged. I think I know, Koby offered. Have I ever told you how Captain Luffy and I met? No, Usopp replied. You were just starting to learn from Zoro when we met. I know you wanted to be a marine before that, and that meeting Luffy and some corrupt marine changed your mind, but not how you met Luffy. Well, I don't really like remembering times before that. I was basically a slave for one, Iron Club, Alvida and me, raiding a luxury cruise. Captain Luffy just jumped out of a barrel in the larder. Koby chuckled at the memory that was so shocking at the time. I was scrawny then. Weak. And I never thought anyone could possibly become the Pirate King, much less the beheaded stranger eating the ship's food. He punched me, but he also said something. Something that stuck with me all this time. I'm going to chase my dream. And if I die, then I die. If I die giving it my all, then I'll have no regrets. Yeah, that sounds like Captain Luffy, Sunny grinned, the snail mimicking it perfectly. Thing is, I think he's changing his mind, Koby continued. When he told me that, he was just a kid fresh out of his hometown. He didn't have a crew or a bounty or turf or allies across the world. He certainly didn't have a wife and child. I think Law's death is starting to drive home the thoughts of what would happen to us, to them, if something happened. You don't think? Usopp began. No, Koby shook his head. Captain isn't going to stop chasing the crown, but I think he'll start trying to fight smarter, not just harder. Sunny's grin widened, looking so much like Luffy's. I can't wait to see it. The trio took a second, each trying to imagine a smarter Luffy, but each fell short of actually managing it. Usopp laughed first, sparking Koby and Sunny to do the same. Speaking of seeing, Usopp said, where are the others on your end, Sunny? We're on full lookout, the Clabouterman replied. We sailed into this thick mist a few hours ago to lose the gull suckers chasing us, and Sea Kings have been trying to get us since. Any idea where we're going? Law said the Vivre card went to his navigator and we've been following it. There have been a few loud, I don't know, horns? Loud noises periodically from ahead. Mary and I think we'll reach it in a day or two. 3 of the Sea Kings keep slowing us down. We're following with a larger crew, but I don't know if that means we'll catch up. We could wait for you. Don't, Koby told her. We could easily miss you with Grand Line weather. Sabo gave Captain Luffy his own Vivre card, but until we can give everyone a piece, it'd be better to meet at our shared destination than risk a near miss. Fair enough. We'll go ahead and carve out a safe place to meet if we have to. Koby smiled. Thanks, Sunny. And tell Grace and the others we'll be there soon. We'll call as soon as we've got something to. There was a great crash on the other end, followed by distant yelling. Damn, another Sea King. Got to go. See you all soon. Cha. Truther fell back asleep as Sunny hung up. Koby and Usopp glanced at each other. They'll be fine, right? Yeah, they'll be fine. You what in Terabang? Nami's voice screeched from outside. The sniper and swordsman glanced at each other again before running to the scene. The deck had mostly cleared, the observers having backed up by the railings to stay away from what was quickly becoming a confrontation. Jinbei was on his knees, his head bowed, as Nami screamed at him, dark, sparking clouds starting to fill the air above in bubbles. Luffy seemed unsure of what to do from the suddenness of the incident. Ace hid behind his father's legs, trembling. Billy tried to hide behind Ace. What's going on here? Koby asked one of the Bardo Club pirates. I'm not really sure, he admitted. We were all talking and having a good time, and someone mentioned the East Blue. The past came up and Mr. Jinbei mentioned some sort of apology and, the man shrugged, gesturing at the scene. You did it, Nami hissed. You had him released in Terabang. I suffered, I lost my childhood, my mother died because of you in Terabang. Lightning struck the topmost part of the mast, a number of pirates screaming and scrambling to put out the fire before it could spread. Going Luffy's Clabouterman materialized on the deck beside his captain, fell forward and cried out, his long, bendy arms reaching at a point on his back that was now smoking. Please, Mrs. Nami, Bartolomeo begged, daring to step forward. I guess this is upsetting ya, but please don't take it out on our she. Cram it, Bart. Nami flicked her perfect climatact, a blast of wind throwing the green-haired gangster overboard. Several of his crew yelled, boss, and dove overboard after him. I understand my actions caused you suffering, Jinbei said, unflinching as another bolt of lightning came down, this one hitting the deck and making the Clabouterman jump in pain again. Had I known of his actions, I would have stopped them. But you didn't, Nami yelled, tears building in her eyes. She choked. Belmir, that monster killed my mom in front of me. He branded me like a slave, all because of you. And there is nothing I can do to change that, Jinbei acknowledged. What Arlong did was wrong. And you let, Nami, stop this, Koby said, stepping forward, this isn't. This is what I deserve. Nami snapped, launching a gust of air at the swordsman. Koby grew into his Dino mode for the weight it provided against the onslaught. I know what he did, Koby replied. And I knew you'd learn of it eventually, but that doesn't make this right. You knew? Her voice dripped with venom. A decade of pain thought buried resurfacing in the face of the one who had released Arlong onto the world, only now turned on one who had kept it from her. Who made you the arbiter of morality, Coby? Nami was not the navigator of the Straw Hat Pirates at the moment, not the wanted wife of a notorious supernova, but the poor, traumatized thief girl who knew the survival of her village rested in the palm of her slave driver, to be crushed if ever she displeased him. It was a feeling Coby knew well, if not the same scenario. Jinbei is not Arlong, Coby said with as much authority as he could muster. He wasn't there, but he did fight alongside Captain Luffy at Marineford. That doesn't change the fact that nothing changes the past. Nami, hurt colored Koby's eyes, a flash of trauma hiding in them. I know your pain. I worked as a slave for a pirate before Captain Luffy saved me, too. And if Alvida stood here, kneeling, begging for forgiveness, I don't know what I'd do, but look around. Would you be here if the past hadn't happened? Nami paused long enough for the red in her vision to falter. Her eyes landed on Luffy, his arms crossed, and their son, hiding behind his legs, looking more scared than she'd ever seen him. She remembered that moment she and Ace shared leaving Fishman Island, when she had opened up to him a little about how much Luffy had done for her, how he had ended her torment, and how that had led her to the ones she would call her family. Her trembling hands dropped her clean attack, the thunderclouds starting to disperse. She took a breath. I'm sorry, she muttered. I overreacted. Luffy took a step forward, and Ace seemed to take that as a sign that it was now safe. The boy surged around his father and ran, nearly tackling his mother's leg. Nami's lingering anger broke like a wave crashing against a dam. She bent down and picked him up, holding him close. Did I scare you, Ace? Mommy's sorry. Mommy was remembering really bad stuff, Ace replied. Auntie Robin-sensei says getting mean when that happens is a SR. A Sir V Val trait. That's right, Ace-chan, Robin confirmed. Good memory. Nami took a breath. I can't forgive you yet, Jinbei, she said, but Namur told us about what fishmen and merfolk have gone through. Humans hurt Arlong, and Arlong hurt me, only because you let him out. She sighed. It still hurts. I know, Jinbei answered, memories of his own flashing through his mind, possibly those of one fisher tiger who Koala mentioned back on Dressrosa. Though the pain may fade, the scars never really heal. I want to live my life showing that humans and fishmen don't have to keep hurting each other. He's not a bad guy, Luffy offered, setting his hat on his wife's head. He was locked up with my brother because he didn't want T the Marine side. He was there for me afterward. Nami hugged him, needing the support. The other Straw Hats around them smiled, ignoring the loud bawling of the Bardo Club at the heartfelt scene. Jinbei, Luffy said. It's been too long. Welcome to the crew. The fishman grinned, standing to accept Luffy's outstretched hand. It's my honor, Captain. The Going Luffy followed in Thousand Sunny's wake for the next 2 days. The Going Luffy sailed into the fog Sunny had warned of on the second day of sailing and were almost immediately beset upon by Sea Kings. This slowed their progress somewhat, but Luffy and Ace didn't seem to mind, given how much Sea King meat there suddenly was at every meal. Sure, it wasn't as good as Sanji's cooking and that reminded everyone of his, and the others, separation, but that wasn't something they could change at the moment. We still don't know anything about this destination, Usopp complained through a mouthful of meat during lunch on the third day. They had received a call from Sunny the morning after their first call saying she and her part of the crew had arrived, but that she refused to reveal anything and ruined the surprise for Captain Luffy. As such, it was all still a mystery. The only hint they had now was the upturn of the Vivre card they were following, showing that Law's navigator must be at a pretty high elevation. That had been 2 days before, so either the Going Luffy was much slower than they thought or the island was moving away from them. Coby wasn't sure he liked either possibility. I bet it's a super cool place, Ace said from his mother's lap, striking Frankie's signature pose with his arms. He had been helping Frankie, bringing tools or getting in the way, as the cyborg reworked some of the plumbing and technology inside the Going Luffy. Nami sent said cyborg a glare for the clear effect he'd had on her son. Maybe there's big robots and ghosts and talking animals and ruins. Yes, that is a possibility, Robin acknowledged with a chuckle. Sunny made it clear Captain would enjoy it, so it must be something of a dangerous location. Why do you have to say that? Coby whined as Luffy and Zoro's eyes lit up. Robin giggled to herself. The mist holds a creature unlike any other, Gambia intoned. It waits for the one to come that heralds the end. When the sun burns away the mist, all will see is light. The cat and the dog shall sing together once more. That does not help, Usopp and Coby yelled at the blonde. Yoho, Brook chuckled, is he always so nonsensical? Gambia is called the prophet for a reason, a different member of the Bardo Club replied. Biwoo. The sound echoed through the mist, nearly making the Going Luffy shake. Man, there's that sound again, Frankie said, it has to be getting louder. Or we're getting closer, Usopp fretted. Perhaps the sound is coming from our destination, Robin suggested with a smile. Robin, Usopp and Chopper cried, holding each other. I hate that I agree, Coby admitted. He glanced over the fishman in their midst with a pensive look on his face. What's on your mind, Jinbei? I'm wondering if we are approaching the ghost island of Zou. Ghost Island in Terabang, Luffy, Ace, Chopper, and Usopp echoed with different emotions. It is not actually an island, Jinbei explained. Zou is the home of the Mikomo dukedom on the back of a giant elephant named Zunisha. No one knows how old the elephant is, but it's the only one of its kind known to exist. That's so cool, Luffy grinned, stars in his eyes. Cool, cool, Ace echoed. Zou, you say? Kinemon asked. How convenient. You see, Kanjuro and I separated from a companion some time ago. We have companions originally from Zou, so Raizo went to meet with them. We were going to send a message when the time came for us to return to Wano, but I suppose this may be the better outcome. So we needed to get there anyway, Luffy smiled, neat. Because it is not a static island with a magnetic field, it cannot be plotted and can be nearly impossible to find, Jinbei continued. It is also home to one of the most unique sentient species in the world. What do you mean by that? Nami questioned. The minks, the former warlord answered. They are a race of animal people, humanoid in shape but with features akin to nearly all other mammals. Canines, felines, equines, primates. If the creature has hair, there is probably a mink for it, outside of certain Grand Line variations. Holy cow, Bartolomeo whispered. The world sure is amazing. That's awesome. The captain grinned despite not knowing the scientific names the newest crew member listed off. So there are talking animals. In a way, yes, Jinbei confirmed. I would not call them such, however, and I suggest you certainly not call them that where they can hear. The minks can be very friendly, but if you set them off, their electro can knock most New World pirates unconscious with a single punch. They're what? Coby blinked. All minks have the ability to produce and conduct electricity. They call this ability electro. Fascinating, Robin said, taking notes. Are minks exclusive to Zou? Usopp questioned. They are mostly isolationist, Jinbei answered, rubbing his chin. Coby whispered the definition of isolationist in Luffy's ear. That said, many leave for lives at sea. I know of members of Big Moms and the new Whitebeards that are or were minks. Why do you ask? My girlfriend Kaya's butler Mary has sheep horns and puffy white hair. I always wondered if it was just a style choice, but now I'm wondering if the horns were actually growing from his head. It's possible, Jinbei confirmed. While rare, humans and minks can have children together. I've heard it's really difficult for the first generation, but gets easier from there, similar to half-fishmen and half-giants. Maybe that's what was up with Shoujo and Masira, Nami muttered to herself, remembering the primate-like salvaging brothers that work with Mont Blanc cricket by Jaya. Or Nezumi, Coby suggested, recalling the crooked marine captain with a sneer. It'd make sense if he was more than just a metaphorical rat. It could be in certain ancestries, Jinbei admitted, though he had met none of the people mentioned, so he could confirm nothing. As I said, though, hybrids or halflings are already uncommon but not unheard of. Dellinger was half-fishman and I know of a half-fishman half-giant on a different pirate crew. Those are called Wodens, but the way. Whoa, Usopp goggled. Half-giants, too? How does that even work? I'm not sure I want to know, Nami muttered, a little green at the thought. Very carefully, I'd imagine, Robin offered with a smile, sipping on her tea. I'd love to see swirly brow barking for some dog woman, Zoro muttered into his own drink, grinning to himself at the mental image. He'd look even more ridiculous than normal. My last name's Monkey, Luffy offered. Maybe I'm part monk. Mink, Coby corrected while Jinbei said, I really doubt it, Captain. That'd make me part monkey, too, Ace laughed. You're not part mink, Nami denied. Heya, everyone, going Luffy called, poking his head through the door to the dining area. There's a shadow ahead. Looks really, really big. I suspect we're nearly there. Everyone, gather your things. True to the suspicion, the giant elephant faded into view from the mist, making every human, Klabouterman, and Chopper and Billy, gape at the sheer size of the creature. It overshadowed them so thoroughly that they could not even see the top through the mist. As the leg, a titanic limb in and of itself, came into view, two shadows appeared to bob in the water behind them. Yo, Sonny! Frankie yelled, striking his pose. How are you super holding up? I'm good, Maker, Sonny grinned waving from the top of her ship. At her side bobbed a cylindrical, yellow vessel of mostly metal. It, too, had a Klabouterman standing atop it, this one with a much more solemn expression. It's her, Bartolomeo cried. It's really the S-Pirates, the Thousand Sunny, she's so much more majestic in person. We are not worthy, his crew chorused, led by Gambia, we are not worthy. Using Bartolomeo's powers, the Straw Hats disembarked, boarding Sunny for the first time in several days. Isn't this place huge? Sunny asked. The others went up and haven't come back down, but I know they're okay. I really wish I could have gone with them, but there were some bad ships down here that needed guarding from. Bad ships? Coby asked. Yeah, they were really good at hiding in the fog. They were all alike and didn't have any hints of any Klabautermans, so Tang and I couldn't sense them at all. The guys on them were all super mean, too, shooting at the elephant's legs and stuff. That's how Tang and I found them. Who's Tang? Luffy asked. That would be me, Straw Hat Yaw, the other Klabauterman called, the pirates looking over the railing to see her. She wore a yellow coat over her short frame, her shoulder-length orange hair matching the bare ears that twitched upon her head. A hand rested on the handle of the short sword at her hip, one clawed finger tapping it rhythmically. She stood, her black eyes eyeing the pirates, before offering a shallow bow. I am Polar Tang, ship of the Heart Pirates. It is good to see you doing well after your injuries, Tri-Horn Yaw. Thank you for taking care of me, Coby replied, remembering how Law and his crew had helped care for him after the damage he took saving his near-comatose captain from then Admiral Akainu's attack back in Marineford. We're sorry for what happened. Tang closed her eyes and breathed softly for a moment. Captain Law didn't believe he would ever see us again, the Klabauterman admitted after a moment. It was hard, but we will endure. I take it your crew are on Zou as well? Jinbei questioned, Tang recognizing him from the War of the Best as well. They are, first son of the sea Yaw, Tang confirmed. Much has happened here over the last week. Nekomamushi sent my crew down when the fighting grew steadily worse, but they returned up when the first of you Straw Hats arrived. The fighting? Chopper parroted. How many are hurt? I don't know. That's why Captain Beppo wanted to return topside. I suggest you follow quickly. That's a good, Nami began, but she trailed off as Luffy jumped over the railing, landing on the Polar Tang. The submarine spirit took a fighting stance, staring at him, but Luffy surprised her and everyone else by wrapping the Klabauterman in a hug. I'm sorry, he muttered. Traff, Law was a good guy. He didn't deserve what Mingo did to him, but we took Mingo down just like he wanted. You and your crew are free to visit his grave at Dressrosa. They're keeping his sword there for you. All was still for a moment before Tang sniffed, tears starting to roll down her cheeks. She wrapped her own arms around Luffy, bawling into his shirt. Captain Law, she wailed. Luffy held the spirit, letting her unleash the emotions he'd sensed inside her. All parties ignored Bartolomeo and the other former gangsters blubbering about how cool Mr. Luffy-sama Senpai was. Finally, after several minutes, Tang pulled back and wiped her eyes. I'm sorry you had to see that. It's okay, Luffy replied. I've learned that everyone just needs a good hug every now and then. He smiled that full, brilliant smile, and Polar Tang returned a small one of her own. Captain Beppo, my crew, and Mary and the rest of your crew are waiting for you. Sunny and I will stay down here. We can't leave, after all. I mean, we could take Sunny's soul, Frankie began. Yeah, go on up, Sunny interrupted. The others got up with Mary's rope techniques. But we don't have Mary, Usopp thought aloud. How will we make it? If I may, Kanjuro offered. Soon enough, the rest of the Straw Hats were on their way to the Makomo dukedom upon the back of a fearsome dragon. The Bardo Club pirates saw them off, accepted their thanks with much blubbering, and sailed away, soon to be chasing a large piece of meat on a giant hook. But that's a different story.